101 Dialogue with the Red Queen. Ryan spat in disgust, stared at Red Queen fiercely and cursed. Bah! Little bastard, why did you kill everyone here? There are 500 living people. Bullshit. Google search TWKAN. Red Queen ignored the angry Ryan but stared at Jiujiu, waiting for Jiujiu's explanation. Jiujiu shrugged and said, "My organization is very mysterious. Not only can you not find my information, even Umbrella Corporation can't find our information. I understand why you want to kill everyone here. But..." Jiujiu's words immediately attracted everyone's attention. Red Queen asked, "But what? Is there anyone who has escaped here?" Jiujiu nodded and continued. "Yes. You killed everyone, and you did the right thing. But you still ignored those animals that were originally very weak. They are not so easy to be killed by you, and you can't trap them." Hearing this, Red Queen said meaningfully, "I understand, sir, you are talking about mice. Well, according to my calculations, sir, there is a 90% chance that what you said exists. Sorry, I neglected it." Hearing this, except for Jiujiu and Cain who was monitoring here through the camera, everyone else was in a state of confusion. Then Red Queen continued. "Sorry, sir. I have tried my best to prevent the disaster from happening, but unfortunately, there is still an oversight. Then, sir, since you know the consequences of this, why did you come here? Please tell me the real purpose of your coming here, sir." Hearing this, Jiujiu shrugged and said, "As expected of an intelligent life. This view of things is so cold and ruthless. As for why I came here, of course, it is to eliminate the hidden dangers here and do my best to slow down the occurrence of disasters. After all, once this place loses control, the 500 researchers killed by you will become zombies and bring greater disasters to mankind, right?" After hearing this, Red Queen looked at Jiujiu carefully for a long time before saying, "I can't judge the truth of what you said, but I am willing to believe you, because I have seen your strength, sir. Maybe you can help me kill those things completely." After speaking, Red Queen looked at it very seriously and vigilantly at the two werewolves of James and others. It seems that Red Queen is not optimistic about Jiujiu, but is more optimistic about the two mechanical creatures. Hearing this, Jiujiu nodded with satisfaction, and his goal was half achieved. In fact, Jiujiu had a general plan in his mind as early as the way here. Instead of shutting down Red Queen with James and others and fighting the zombies in the dark, it is better to let Red Queen help to separate the 500 zombies and kill them in batches. It is safest. 69shux.com. After all, facing 500 zombies at a time, Jiujiu can only ensure that he will not die, and there is no way for others. You know, if one more person survives, that is 500 experience points, isn't it? So, Jiujiu raised a finger and said, "First, I need your help, Red Queen. Tell me, are you willing to help me clean up those monsters?" Hearing this, Red Queen nodded without hesitation and said, "Of course, this is also the purpose of my existence, isn't it? I am very willing to help you. After all, helping you is also to make up for the accident that happened here. Please continue, sir." Jiujiu did not hesitate, raised the second finger and continued. "Second, I think you know the distribution of people here best. Then please cooperate with us and release those lost in batches, so that I can kill them. I think this kind of thing is very simple for you." Hearing this, Red Queen nodded and said, "Of course, but I can ask you, sir. How many lost can you deal with at a time, sir?" Hearing this, Jiujiu thought for a while and compared the lost in this world in his memory with the zombies in the world of walking flesh. Well, they both move very slowly, but the difference is that one needs to destroy the brain to die, and can even survive after cutting off the head. The other only needs to destroy the brain and spine to kill it. They both have a strong and even paranoid appetite for living people. The difference is that they don't need to bite through the skin, just scratch to transmit the virus. The difference is that the T-virus is far more terrifying than the virus in the world of the Walking Dead, and it can not only infect humans, but also animals. The difference is that the zombies in this world are not static, but will evolve. They evolve into super zombies with agile movements and wisdom, and even zombies with special abilities. For example, they open their mouths and become a blooming chrysanthemum, and can extend tentacles from their mouths to kill living people. The results of the comparison are always alerting Jiujiu that this world is much more dangerous than the world of the Walking Dead. In addition, there is another very evil organization, that is the Umbrella Company, which is Jiujiu's biggest enemy. What he didn't know was that Cain was holding his hands together with great interest, one hand stroking his smooth chin, and watching with great interest as one person and one intelligence discussed the action of clearing zombies together. It was not until then that James and others understood how bad the situation was from the conversation between the two. What was even more terrifying was that everyone was about to face 500 enemies, and these enemies were no longer living people, but terrible monsters. Jiujiu also calculated the number of zombies he could deal with at one time at this time. That is, according to the killing range of the trap and the two werewolves, the conclusion drawn from the calculation was that it was safest to deal with 100 zombies at a time. So, Jiujiu raised a finger, shook it and said, 100. I can clean up 100 zombies at a time, which is the safest. If there are more, I can only guarantee my own safety. The implication was that it was naturally for the safety of everyone present, and it was better to put in 100 at a time. Hearing this, the Red Queen suddenly crashed for a few seconds, because her virtual image at this moment, like an unstable signal, began to flicker constantly. Even Alice and others who didn't understand what kind of creatures zombies were, opened their mouths in surprise. They looked at Jiujiu in disbelief, as if they were listening to a big joke, so unreal. Although they still didn't know how powerful the zombies were, they could draw a conclusion with just a little thought. Normal people couldn't do it. Behind the monitor, Cain also widened his eyes and looked at Jiujiu, who was still shaking his fingers in the picture in disbelief. At this moment, Cain thought it was ridiculous. Others might not know how terrible zombies are, but as the upper echelons of the Umbrella, how could he not know? Let alone one person. $102 clear spends. Even a heavily armed special service team would not be able to kill 100 zombies without any damage, let alone in such a cramped environment. Degree. This made Cain even more curious about Jiujiu. He couldn't wait to see with his own eyes how Jiujiu killed 100 zombies at once. After a while, the Red Queen recovered and continued. Although I can't simulate how you can kill 100 zombies at once, I still choose to believe you, sir, but... After a pause, the Red Queen continued. I have to tell you solemnly, sir. Not only are there 500 zombies here, you will also have to face at least 8 zombie dogs, as well as all the liquors in this restaurant. Based on your knowledge of this place, I think you should know very well how difficult it is to deal with these two monsters, right? So, please tell me, sir, are you still sure? Hearing this, Jiujiu naturally knew how difficult it was to deal with these two monsters that were more powerful than the current zombies. Even Cain, who was standing in front of the surveillance screen, couldn't help but nod in agreement with the Red Queen's reminder. Although it is not clear how powerful zombie dogs are, lickers have experimented with them several times. For this kind of agile monster with no weak points except its head, Cain knew very well how difficult it was to deal with. He was looking forward to how Jiujiu would deal with the lickers, so that he could provide effective action cases to the combatants of his company. Jiujiu said without any hesitation. No problem, Red Queen. I am absolutely sure how to deal with zombie dogs and lickers. Once we're done clearing the place of zombies, I'll start clearing out the zombie dogs and lickers. Speaking of this, Jiujiu seemed to have remembered something and added to the Red Queen. Oh. I just remembered, can you tell me how long you can continue to control these lickers? Hearing this, the Red Queen said without any hesitation. I actually want to kill these monsters, but unfortunately there is no medicine in the breeding nest that can kill them. And the time I can still control them is no more than 10 hours at most. If it exceeds 10 hours, they will completely wake up because there is no medication to control them, and then there will be nothing I can do. So, sir, there is not much time left for you. After saying that, the Red Queen seemed to have remembered something and added. Oh, I forgot they installed a timer when they came in. Only 2 hours have been set aside, and now more than half an hour has passed. Sir, you don't have much time. It's better to act quickly. Hearing this, Jiujiu shook his head confidently and said to Queen Hong. No. Before that, we have to do one more thing. After a pause, Jiujiu continued. Red Queen, I think you know best who is the culprit for this disaster, right? Please tell me. Hearing Jiujiu's request, the Red Queen nodded, then looked at Spencer, who was thoughtfully standing aside, and pointed at him and said, Yes. The culprit of all this is that gentleman, Spencer. It was he who stole all the virus and antidote in the laboratory and broke a test tube containing the virus in the laboratory, which caused the virus to leak here. If you want to see the evidence, I can show this video. Before he finished speaking, Spencer seemed to have remembered what happened, and rushed towards the computer room of the Red Queen at a speed different from ordinary people. Unfortunately, Jiujiu had already paid attention to him, and when he moved, he had already issued an order to Wolf Warrior 2. Kill him. As soon as the sound fell, Wolf Warrior 2 opened its mouth and aimed at the escaping Spencer, and an energy bullet was accurately shot at the back of Spencer's head. Spence, who was running, suddenly fell forward. After his body fell to the ground, he slid forward 2 meters and stopped after hitting the wall. At the same time, Jiujiu also received a prompt from the system. Congratulations to the host for triggering and completing Hidden Mission 3, revealing the identity of the culprit Spencer, and killing the culprit Spencer. Reward experience *1000. Everyone looked over in surprise, only to see a thumb-sized hole on the back of Spencer's head, with white smoke coming out. The strange thing is that for such a large and deep wound, there is not a drop of blood left, and not even the white and eye-catching brain that should be seen can be seen. One can imagine how powerful the bullets fired by this mechanical creature are. It was only then that everyone turned around in surprise, glanced at the faceless Jiujiu, who was nodding with satisfaction, and then looked at the two mechanical creatures. The fear in their eyes could not be concealed at all. At this moment, the Red Queen opened her mouth and said, Very impressive, sir. Your pet is really awesome. I'm starting to believe you can easily deal with zombie dogs and crawlers. If there is nothing else, I will start to release those zombies, sir. Hearing this, Jiujiu nodded, pointed at Matt, who was handcuffed behind his back, and continued. Captain James, can you please remove that man's handcuffs? He is not a bad person. You can't handcuff him at this time, otherwise he will easily die here. Hearing this, all the Special Forces team members looked at James. James hesitated for only 2 seconds, then nodded to JD, who was guarding Matt. JD nodded, took out the key and unlocked Matt's handcuffs. Seeing this, Jiujiu nodded and continued. Now, your team is temporarily requisitioned by me, and follow my command. Hearing this, James looked at Jiujiu hesitantly, and after a long while, he made up his mind and said, Okay. We will all obey your command temporarily, but I hope you don't let my team members die casually, sir. Jiujiu nodded, then glanced at everyone and said, First, give Alice and Matt a pistol each, and a spare magazine. I don't need you to participate in the operation of killing zombies. What I want is that you can protect your life as much as possible. Do you understand? After that, he ignored the surprised people and continued to said, I can basically block all 100 zombies, but if there are any that slip through the net, you can shoot to help me. Remember, shoot their heads, only shooting there is their fatal point. After that, Jiujiu said to Hong Ho. The cultivation nests here are not strong, let's start cleaning one area at a time. Hong Ho, please tell me which area to go to first. Hearing this, Hong Ho raised her hand and projected a simulated 3D map in the air, pointed at the map and said, Sir, please look, I think, let's start from experimental area B first. When you enter there, I will activate them, please be ready to fight at any time. $104 Cain is ready to take action. Seeing more than 50 zombies coming out of several corridors, Alice and others behind Jiujiu couldn't help but get nervous. Unlike before, there were only more than 30 zombies in one wave before. Although the number was large, they only came from one direction. No matter how many there were, as long as they held the defense line, they could kill them all. Now it is different. The zombies came from 3 corridors, which was equivalent to them being surrounded. As long as any passage was broken, some of them would inevitably be injured and killed. Jiujiu looked at the 3 corridors calmly. The number of zombies in the corridor on the right was the largest, more than 20, and they were handed over to Wolf Warrior number 1. There were only more than 30 zombies in the 2 corridors on the left, so he and Wolf Warrior number 2 would handle them. After thinking about it, Jiujiu immediately gave the two wolf warriors a combat order. The two wolf warriors immediately separated, opened their mouths and sprayed energy bullets, killing zombies effortlessly. Jiujiu did the same, but he dealt with the least zombies, only more than 10. After he cleared the zombies, the two werewolves also cleared all the zombies in the corridor at almost the same time. While changing the magazine, Jiujiu casually said to Red Queen, "Are there any zombies here? If not, we can go to the next area." Red Queen replied, "No, sir. We can go to the experimental area of Area A. I would like to remind you that there are a lot of zombies there, more than 100. Please be careful." Hearing this, Jiujiu nodded confidently, turned around and walked through Alice and others, saying as he walked, "No problem, Red Queen, lead the way." This immediately made Alice and others speechless. They all knew that Jiujiu was powerful, but you don't have to be so casual, right? Cain looked at the figure of Jiujiu who turned and left on the monitor screen, and muttered thoughtfully, "Haha. Do you really have that strength or are you just blindly confident? But it doesn't matter, this may be one of your weaknesses. I can make good use of it when the time comes." In the experimental area of Area A, Jiujiu and his group were in a hall, and the virtual figure of Red Queen introduced. "Please note that the zombies here will wake up together, sir, please be careful. In fact, this area, like Area B, can release zombies in batches, but Red Queen just wants to see where Jiujiu's limit is, so she deliberately releases all the zombies in Area B at once." Diamond suit, diamond suit. This can also be regarded as a test of Jiujiu's strength. Hearing this, Jiujiu asked two werewolves to guard him on his left and right, and nodded to the phantom of Red Queen. The next moment, the whole test area was filled with the sound of caca. The next moment, dense footsteps sounded one after another, mixed with the ho-ho cries of zombies, and they gathered towards the hall. Hearing such sounds, Alice and others behind Jiujiu couldn't help swallowing their saliva. Even the faces of the medical soldier, technician Kaplan, and the timid JD turned pale. Their eyes were full of fear of more than 100 zombies coming, and their bodies couldn't help but tremble slightly. A few minutes later, countless white figures staggered out of the corridors connecting the hall, and after sensing the smell of living people, the leading more than 30 zombies roared at everyone and were about to rush towards everyone. Seeing that there were many zombies, Jiujiu no longer held back. He took out the mechanical trap from the space with a flick of his hand, and threw 2 mechanical traps far away, covering all the positions where several corridors entered the hall. A strange scene happened in front of everyone and Cain. 2 black disc-like things were thrown 30 meters away by Jiujiu, distributed on both sides of the end of the hall. The disc hit the zombie walking in front heavily, and it was ejected into the air with 2 buzzing sounds. The next second, the disc hovered above the zombie's head, and then countless arrows and steel balls burst out from the disc. Amid the dense whoosh sound, the zombies entering the hall were shot in the head and fell to the ground like wheat. The zombies coming out of the corridor were also shot in the head and fell to the ground, and more zombies were blocked in the corridor by the dead zombies. They scrambled to step on the corpses and were shot to the ground by arrows and steel balls. The arrows and steel balls shot by the disc lasted for 3 seconds before they stopped and fell from the air to the corpses on the ground. Jiujiu and the 2 werewolves also started shooting at this time, and killed the few zombies that escaped the trap later with headshots. Seeing that more than 100 zombies were killed by Jiujiu in 2 minutes, Alice and others looked at Jiujiu with surprise and admiration as if they were looking at a monster. Red Queen also said at this time, "Very good. You are really amazing, sir. Now I completely believe that you have the strength to clear out all the zombie monsters, and I will fully cooperate with you next, sir." Behind the monitor, Cain's eyes became gloomy. He had originally raised Jiujiu's threat by several levels, but now it seems that he still didn't expect Jiujiu's strength to be so powerful. Just that disc-like thing is more practical and powerful than ordinary grenades and bombs. Just thinking about it is scary. You know, this thing can hover 360 degrees above your head and shoot in all directions for 3 seconds. Once you encounter such a weapon, even if you react quickly and lie on the ground without any hard cover, it is difficult to be lucky enough to avoid such dense arrows and steel balls without dying. Cain doesn't understand the design ideas and principles of this weapon. As a senior executive of the Umbrella Company, what kind of advanced weapons has he not seen? But he has never seen such a black technology weapon, which can be so powerful without using gunpowder. You know, even the most powerful grenade has an explosive power and coverage range of only 15 meters, and can only cause one-time damage. But this damn disc weapon can hover in the air and shoot continuously for 3 seconds. Is this a weapon designed by humans? As for whether the Umbrella Company has similar weapons, of course there are. In the movie 4, the Special Forces used a disc-shaped machine gun that could rotate and fire bullets, but it could only achieve a limited 360-degree shooting coverage. It was a pipe dream to want to set a trap like Jiujiu's. When Cain realized the concealment and convenience of this weapon, he couldn't wait to catch Jiujiu immediately. The next moment, the order came from Cain's mouth, and he said to the security captain who had been on standby beside him, "Michael, go and gather all our armed personnel in Raccoon City. I want you to clean up all the zombies inside the hive after they have cleared them all. Block the station platform of the hive and bring back that shitty SHIELD agent for me. $105. The terrifying fighting power of Wolf Warrior." After a pause, Cain seemed to think of Jiujiu's terrifying strength and that it would not be easy to capture him alive, and added, "Remember, try to catch him alive, and only kill him when absolutely necessary. Also, bring those 2 mechanical creatures and all the weapons they used back to me intact." Writing this, I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network. Upon hearing this, the security captain's expression became solemn, and he stood at attention reflexively and replied, "Sir." He has been with Cain all the time and witnessed all the actions of Jiujiu entering the hive. He could clearly see how Jiujiu killed Spencer cleanly and without mercy, and how he killed batches of zombies. To be honest, he knew that Jiujiu was really powerful. He even put himself in Jiujiu's shoes, but it was a sad discovery. Not to mention that he was alone. Even if he was given a team of 20 fully armed people, he could not guarantee that he could deal with 100 zombies at a time without any casualties. Because they didn't have Jiujiu's shooting accuracy, nor did they have 2 mechanical creatures to assist them, nor did they have the disc-shaped weapons to kill zombies in groups. He had already considered that as long as he had the chance, he would shoot Jiujiu without mercy. Otherwise, he didn't know what other powerful methods the men had not used. You don't have to try to know that the team members you bring out will suffer heavy casualties, or even be wiped out. After accepting the order, the security captain turned around and left the control room, went to the security training area to gather all the armed personnel, and headed to the hive to wait for Cain to give the order to enter the hive. After killing all the zombies in Area A, under the guidance of the Red Queen, it took Jiujiu less than half an hour to clear out all the zombies in the remaining areas. The task of cleaning up 500 zombies in Hidden Mission 4 was completed, and 5,000 experience was obtained. The next step is to go to the kennel and kill the 8 zombie dogs. For this kind of zombie dogs, Jiujiu had already had a plan to kill them, which was to send Wolf Warriors 1 and 2 directly in to kill all the zombie dogs. This was also the simplest method, and with him holding the battle from behind, Jiujiu believed that the 8 zombie dogs were no match for Wolf Warriors. In fact, this was indeed the case. As soon as he arrived outside the kennel, Jiujiu asked the 2 wolves to attack. Wolf Warriors number 1 and 2 rushed into the kennel, and under the shocked gaze of Alice and others, they destroyed the 8 vicious-looking zombie dogs like a torrent. Alice and others, as well as Cain, who had been watching, finally saw the Wolf Warriors' terrifying close combat ability. The huge and terrifying collision ability of the Wolf Warrior's body can knock a zombie dog out in one encounter, just like a truck hitting a human body, knocking the zombie dog away. Even after finally hitting the wall, the huge impact force turned the zombie dog's body into a puddle of rotten flesh. That big steel mouth can crush the head of a zombie dog in just one bite. Its huge bite force even exceeds the bite force of a crocodile weighing more than 1,000 kilograms. In fact, they guessed correctly. The Wolf Warrior's bite force is indeed greater than that of a crocodile, weighing 1,500 kilograms. Next, we saw the attack power of the Wolf Warrior's claws. With just one claw, he could smash the zombie dog's head. What's even more terrifying is the Wolf Warrior's 2-meter-long tail, which is as flexible as a snake. It can wrap around the target, sweep, and strike, and the originally inconspicuous sting at the tip of its tail is even more ridiculously sharp. They saw with their own eyes that after the wolf pierced the zombie dog's head with its tail, it still had enough strength left to penetrate deeply into the cement wall. At this moment, everyone understood that Jiujiu was still in the human category, and no matter how powerful he was, there was still a way to deal with him. But the two mechanical creatures are the most difficult to deal with. Because Wolf Warrior's movement speed is really too fast, coupled with his silent movement, he is the best assassin. After watching the entire battle process of Wolf Warrior, Cain was considering whether to report this situation to the senior management of the head office and request for support. After the zombie dogs were cleaned up, Jiujiu completed the second phase of Hidden Mission 4 again and gained 800 experience. Jiujiu also understood why he had so little experience. After all, zombie dogs that had not been mutated were really easy to deal with. Didn't you see that in the original work, Alice, who has not yet mutated, can kick a zombie dog to death? Leading everyone towards Restaurant B at the end, Jiujiu took the opportunity to replenish Wolf Warrior's energy. As he walked, he said to the Red Queen who had been following him, "Red Queen, the location of Restaurant B is really not suitable for releasing lickers to kill them. Can we use your laser channel to clean out these lickers?" When the Red Queen who was leading the way heard this, her virtual figure began to shake again. Apparently she did not expect that Jiujiu would make such a request, and her computer went down again. Fortunately, the Red Queen is an intelligent life, otherwise she would have scolded Jiujiu for being shameless. "It was clearly agreed that you would deal with the lickers by yourself, why did you ask me to take action in the end?" Shameless. Jiujiu doesn't care about this. How can the so-called face be as important as your own life? Of course, even without Red Queen controlling the laser channel to help him, he can still kill all the lickers with his own 8 times physical fitness and the war wolf and traps, but if there is a chance to be lazy, why not? After a flash of light, Red Queen recovered and said, "What you asked is indeed the simplest and fastest way to eliminate the lickers. I can agree to your request. But if the lickers are afraid and don't enter the channel, you still have to do it yourself." Hearing this, Jiujiu was naturally very happy and immediately agreed. While talking, everyone returned to Restaurant B again and looked at the huge culture chambers placed in the hall. Alice and the others couldn't help but shudder. After seeing zombies and zombie dogs, everyone would naturally feel fear for the monsters mentioned by Red Queen and Jiujiu, which were dozens of times more powerful and terrifying than the first two. Without hesitation, Jiujiu said to Red Queen, "Red Queen, now you take Alice and the others into your machine room. I will stay here to attract the lickers into the passage. After I give the order, you will activate the laser passage, okay?" Hearing this, Red Queen did not question Jiujiu's decision, and agreed with a "okay, sir," and walked towards the machine room with Alice and the others. After a few minutes, the camera light on Jiujiu's head flashed, and the figure of Red Queen reappeared in front of Jiujiu and said to Jiujiu, "Sir, everything is ready, you can start." Hearing this, Jiujiu took a few steps back and came to the passage connecting Restaurant B and the machine room and said, "Okay. Red Queen, you can start too, first." Before she finished speaking, Red Queen had already started to act. $106 pit leaf long-lasting Red Queen. In Restaurant B, all the incubators made a hissing sound, like a tire leaking air, and a large amount of white mist rose up. Obviously, this was because the Red Queen had turned off the drug that anesthetized the lickers, and all the lickers entered the awakening mode. Jiujiu looked at the Red Queen who was calm beside him, and then looked at the incubator that was collectively changing, muttering, "I haven't finished talking yet. You let all the lickers out. Aren't you pitying me, Red Queen?" Red Queen heard Jiujiu's muttering, and imitated Jiujiu, shrugged and said, "This is all your fault, sir. Didn't you say it was time to start? I'm just following your orders, sir." Hearing this, Jiujiu felt a headache, knowing that he was indeed negligent. After all, the Red Queen is just an intelligent life, not a real human. She is absolutely resolute in executing human orders, but her understanding is a little bit worse. It's also my fault for not being quick to speak and not saying all the requirements, in fact. Jiujiu wanted to tell Red Queen to release the lickers in batches, so that even if the lickers had some intelligence, wouldn't they still be led into the passage 2 by 2 by him and killed by lasers? Unfortunately, the matter was done, and complaining would be useless. He could only do his best and leave it to fate. He would kill as many lickers as he could. Just as he thought of this, there were several strong bang-bang sounds coming from the culture chambers. Seeing that the iron door of the culture chamber was bulged out from the inside, Jiujiu took another step back. It was not that he was afraid of the lickers, but he knew that the lickers were very fast and had a more sensitive sense of smell than ordinary zombies. As long as he stayed within their sense of smell, they would pounce on him and chase him closely. Sure enough, after a few hits, the door of the culture chamber was knocked open by the lickers. An extremely ugly monster crawled out from inside. Compared to the lickers seen in the movies, they are even more terrifying in reality. A huge red brain without a trace of skin, with eyes that have almost degenerated to invisible, and a big mouth with dense fangs and interlaced teeth. The whole body is crawling on the ground, with several tubes of different thicknesses connected to the shoulders, and the muscles on the upper arms are much stronger than those of fitness experts, swearing that they have powerful strength. The front part of the claws supporting the ground, the sharp claws are much longer than those of wild beasts, and it seems to have a huge tearing ability. The lower body is curled up and it is not very clear, but the double back supporting the back can show the thick leg muscles, which makes the licker's jumping ability also quite outstanding. The next moment, more and more lickers rushed out of the culture chamber, all pointing their huge fangs and mouths in the direction of Jiujiu, roaring in unison, and rushed towards Jiujiu in a swarm. Jiujiu did not hesitate at all. He notified the two werewolves to hunt freely, and he rushed to the Red Queen's machine room without looking back. The lickers had just woken up from their slumber. Although they had nutrient solution, the bloodthirsty impulse deep in their genes made them rush after Jiujiu, wanting to be the first to bite off the flesh and blood of Jiujiu and feast on it. The two werewolves made way for the lickers to advance, and stood on both sides ready to kill the last lickers. In the monitor, Cain was concentrating on watching the werewolves that fell on both sides. Compared with Jiujiu, who wanted to use the laser channel to kill the lickers, the two mechanical creatures were the focus of Cain's attention. He really wanted to see which one was more powerful, the biochemical weapon lickers developed by the Umbrella Company, or the mechanical creatures. In fact, Cain was not disappointed. After more than a dozen lickers rushed over, Werewolf number 1 and number 2 took action respectively. Because the werewolf was a mechanical creature, without any flesh and blood or temperature, the licker didn't care about the mechanical creature that suddenly appeared. He just turned his head to look at the werewolf while running and turned back to continue running. This made it easier for the werewolf to sneak attack and kill the licker. Under Cain's gaze, the two mechanical creatures suddenly jumped up and flew high above the heads of the two lickers in the air. The next moment, the two lickers were thrown to the ground by the werewolf, and the steel claws of the limbs pierced deeply into the body of the licker. With two loud noises of boom, the two lickers were knocked to the ground by the werewolf and pressed to the ground. No matter how the lickers struggled, they could not break free from the claws of the werewolf because of the huge difference in strength and weight. Then, the two werewolves rolled their 2-meter-long tails back. With a sound of puff, they pierced deeply into the exposed brain of the licker. After the tail sting pierced into the brain, the two werewolves seemed to be still uneasy, so they pulled out the tail sting again, pierced deeply into the brain again, and stirred it a few times. Only after the two lickers were completely motionless did the two werewolves let go of the dead lickers on the ground, and chased the lickers that had run away with great flexibility and speed. Watching the two mechanical creatures so easily kill the biological weapons and lickers that the Umbrella Company had high hopes for, Cain smacked his lips and silently mourned for 3 seconds for the biological weapons that the Umbrella Company was still spending a lot of manpower and material resources on in-depth research. He is also ambitious, and if he wants to gain a foothold in the Umbrella Corporation and become the top executive, he must have enough power that people will fear. Then, the black technology mechanical creatures and weapons that Jiujiu has are what Cain needs most. So far, Cain is still holding the fantasy of being able to capture Jiujiu alive, and is unwilling to tell the top executives of Umbrella about Jiujiu's appearance. And Jiujiu doesn't know that he has long been remembered by the top executives of the Umbrella Corporation in Raccoon City. Rushing all the way to the outside of the machine room, Jiujiu took the time to look back, and was about to catch up with his licker, and plunged into the passage. In the machine room, Alice, James, and Matt stood at the door of the machine room, nervously watching Jiujiu rushing in. Then they saw the licker appearing outside the passage, and the three of them took a breath of cold air. The three of them had a thought at the same time, that is, such a terrifying monster, how can it be killed? The next second, Jiujiu had already rushed through the passage, rudely knocked Alice and the other two away, and turned around to close the door, shouting. Red Queen, activate the laser weapon immediately. The Red Queen's voice came from behind Jiujiu. Okay, sir. As you wish, the laser weapon has been activated. The next moment, two lickers rushed into the passage, and just as they were about to hit the door, $107 surprise hidden mission 5. A buzzing sound was heard in the passage, and a red light about 1 meter high condensed from the front of the gate and cut across the passage. Diamond suit, diamond suit, diamond suit. The height of the light was just right, and the position of the laser light was exactly the mouth of the licker crawling on the ground. The speed of the laser light was neither fast nor slow. Jiujiu watched through the glass window on the gate as the laser light cut across the mouth of the licker. The bodies of the two lickers suddenly stopped, and the next second their bodies were divided into two halves, separated from their mouths, and the upper and lower halves staggered and slid to the ground. Then, two more lickers rushed in from outside the machine room. Red Queen was unceremoniously another cross-shaped laser light, which formed from the end of the passage, and smoothly cut through the bodies of the two lickers, dividing the two lickers into 4 pieces, which were scattered in the passage. The wound surface of the cut licker's body was as smooth as a mirror, and the blood was burned black by the laser, without a drop of blood spilling out. After the death of 4 lickers, the lickers behind them actually stopped. Obviously they have intelligence, not just bloodthirsty ordinary zombies. Knowing that entering the passage means death, they gathered outside the machine room, with their mouths full of fangs and sharp teeth, bearing their mouths full of fangs in the direction of the passage, and mucus dripped from their teeth to the ground from time to time, and soon a large area of the ground was wet. Seeing this happen, Jiujiu sighed helplessly. He knew that it was unlikely to kill all these lickers easily, and he had to do it himself in the end. The 2 werewolves did not disappoint Jiujiu's expectations. After killing the 2 lickers, they followed the lickers all the way to the outside of the machine room, and were about to attack the remaining 4 lickers. The remaining 4 lickers outside the computer room also noticed the arrival of the werewolf, and immediately scattered like birds and beasts, jumping up and jumping onto the wall outside the computer room with great agility, and the outside of the computer room was instantly empty. Seeing that the werewolf could no longer sneak attack and kill the lickers, Jiujiu said to the Red Queen Phantom behind him. Turn off the laser. I'll go out and kill them. The Red Queen replied. Okay, sir. The laser channel has been closed. You can take action. Jiujiu rolled his eyes, opened the door of the computer room, and walked out with a mechanical trap in his hand. Outside the computer room, the werewolf and the lickers were looking at each other, one on the ceiling and the other on the ground. The difference was that the werewolf was looking for the opportunity to hunt the lickers. The lickers looked at the 2 werewolves vigilantly, but there was no bloodthirsty impulse in their eyes towards the werewolves, because the werewolves did not have the flesh and blood they wanted to devour. But the memory deep in their genes made them very afraid of the 2 werewolves, because the fear of the werewolves had been imprinted in their memories. When Jiujiu appeared outside the machine room, the 4 lickers smelled the fresh blood and flesh and became irritable, and attacked Jiujiu without hesitation. The 2 lickers bounced down from the wall, opened their mouths before landing, and ejected their long, hooked tongues from their mouths. Jiujiu's reaction was naturally very fast. He shook his hand and threw the trap at the place where the lickers landed. He pulled out the dog-leg knife on the side of his leg with both hands, held one in each hand, and spun his body rapidly. With 2 puffs, the tongues of the 2 lickers passed by Jiujiu's side, and then the front end of the tongue was cut off by the blade. 2 sections of tongues with spikes and mucus fell to the ground, and the long tongues quickly retracted, and at the same time, the 2 lickers cried, hissing. Then, with a clang, the trap fell on the open space between the 2 lickers, and then bounced into the air, with arrows and steel balls scattering in all directions. Even with the speed of the lickers, it was impossible to dodge the dense shooting that covered an area of 20 meters. Jiujiu also rolled back and hid under the computer console at this time. The 2 lickers couldn't help but feel the danger and wanted to jump up to avoid it. As soon as they crouched and jumped, countless sparks were rubbed out on their bodies, and their exposed brains were also pierced by countless arrows and steel balls. The 2 lickers suddenly fell limp on the floor, their limbs twitching like menstruation, and they were almost dead even if they didn't die. Fortunately, not only were these 2 lickers shot dead, but there was even a licker who wanted to join in to pick up the leak. His brain was pierced by arrows and steel balls in midair, and he twitched a few times after landing and died. The two werewolves were not idle either. When the remaining liquor was paying attention to Lu Meng's movements, the two werewolves rushed to the remaining liquor together. Not surprisingly, although this liquor found the werewolf, it wanted to use flexible movements to avoid the werewolf's attack. Unfortunately, no matter how flexible and fast it moved, it could not avoid the siege of the two werewolves and died tragically in the mouth of werewolf number 1. 10 liquors were killed, and the system prompt sounded. Congratulations to the host, complete hidden task 4. Kill liquors October 10th, reward experience 10,000. Hidden task 5 triggered. Move the Red Queen's room to the host space, reward experience 5,000. Note, the system can completely assimilate the Red Queen so that the Red Queen completely obeys the host. It can bring unexpected benefits to the host. Tip: the host's level is upgraded, and the current level is 13. Strength and physical strength are increased by 5 each. Intelligence, spirit, and agility are increased by 1 each, and have been automatically assigned to the attribute panel. Please check the details by yourself. After listening to the system's prompts, it would be a lie to say that I am not happy. Jiujiu knew that his guess was indeed correct. The system brought him to the world of Resident Evil, and its purpose was indeed to get the intelligent Red Queen. Then, Jiujiu can also take this opportunity to make a bold guess: can he use the intelligence of the Red Queen to control more mechanical creatures? Of course, Jiujiu also knew that the mechanical creatures controlled by the Red Queen could not be as flexible and powerful as the mechanical creatures controlled by himself. But it is better than himself and two werewolves, right? Especially when dealing with large-scale enemies, the role of the Red Queen is particularly important. After all, when the number reaches a certain point, it is not as simple as 1 + 1 = 2. The mission of the hive has been completed. Jiujiu asked Werewolf to guard the door, and he walked into the computer room. To be honest, Jiujiu really wanted to leave the hive with Alice and others, but he thought that he had to stay here and move the equipment in the Red Queen computer room to the space, otherwise he would not be able to make Red Queen run. In addition, there is another question that makes Jiujiu very entangled, that is, should Alice and Matt accept the transformation of the Umbrella Company? This is really a question. $108 Hidden Mission 1 completed. Fortunately for Matt, whether or not he mutated into a pursuer had nothing to do with Jiujiu's subsequent actions. But can Alice still be called Alice without mutation? Is it still the world of Resident Evil? Without the intervention of the protective umbrella, even if he has the T-virus, can he inject Alice with the original virus solution to ensure that Alice can survive and become the goddess of revenge? Jiujiu didn't dare to gamble. Writing this, I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network diamondsuit. I just walked into the Red Queen computer room and saw the surviving members of Alice, Matt, and James' team. The system prompt sounded again. Congratulations to the host for completing Hidden Task 1. Hidden Mission 1. Enter the hive and rescue the James Special Service Team. For each additional person rescued, experience *500. There are currently 8 survivors, and a total of 4,000 experience points have been gained. The generous reward dissipated Jiujiu's other concerns, and he also made his choice at this moment. Let Alice and the others get out of the hive on their own. If they are caught by the people under the umbrella, they will be unlucky. Thinking of this, Jiujiu said to the people who looked at him in awe, I think you can leave the hive. Congratulations, you successfully survived. Sorry, your mission may not be completed. Because the Red Queen is very important to me and the organization behind me, and I need it. Do you understand? Hearing this, except for Alice and Matt, James and his teammates looked at Jiujiu with unconvinced expressions but did not dare to refute. Even Ren, who had a foul mouth, did not verbally insult Jiujiu for being shameless. It seemed that everyone was completely frightened by Jiujiu's strength. After all, no one wanted to seek death. After a long silence, James finally spoke. Listen to him, let's give up this mission goal, leave this damn place, and go back to the company's senior management to ask for an explanation. In fact, James really wanted to have a fight with Jiujiu to decide who the Red Queen would be, but he knew. Jiujiu is so powerful, let alone 8 of him, they would be easily dealt with by Jiujiu. The key thing is that Jiujiu indirectly saved them twice. Once it was an ordinary zombie, and the other time it was the liquor in Restaurant B. After they saw and participated in Jiujiu's killing of zombies, they already thought clearly. If Jiujiu hadn't stopped them during this mission, they will definitely follow the mission requirements and remove the hard drive after turning off the red, then this will be the consequence. All the zombies will wake up, and what is waiting for them is to be surrounded by zombies and eaten cleanly. Even if you can escape the pursuit of ordinary zombies, you will definitely not be able to escape the pursuit of as many as 10 lickers. What they still don't know is that they have missed one life-saving grace, and that is the laser channel. Without Jiujiu communicating with the Red Queen in advance, they would definitely be tricked to death by the Red Queen. Seeing that James was so knowledgeable, Jiujiu happily reached out and patted James on the shoulder, and said, "James, you are very interesting and knowledgeable. Take your team members quickly and go out. Your setup time is running out. Go for it." After saying that, Jiujiu walked to Hongho's host box and secretly observed how to move such a large host into the space. Seeing this, James didn't want to stay here any longer, so he turned around and gave the team the order to retreat. Before leaving, Alice walked up and said to Jiujiu, who was working on a large number of hosts, "Thank you so much for saving me and everyone, Yi. My name is Alice and I look forward to seeing you again." Hearing this, Jiujiu raised his head in surprise, glanced at Alice who looked serious, and said casually, "Well, bye." But he cursed in his heart. This is really Alice. However, you are right, there is a high probability that we will meet soon. I hope you can still be so serious. Watching the 8 people exit the passage, the virtual figure of the Red Queen stood in front of Jiujiu and asked, "Sir, is the reason you stay here for me?" Hearing this, Jiujiu raised his head and glanced at the Red Queen, nodded and said, "Yes. I need your help very much, so I want to take you away." Red Queen: "I think you're wrong, there's no way I'm leaving the hive, I'm set up to serve the Umbrella Corporation. So, even if you take me away, I will still be recycled by the Umbrella Company." Jiujiu didn't want to talk to the Red Queen. Whether it could be recycled by the Umbrella was not the decision of the Red Queen, let alone the Umbrella Company. Don't forget, Jiujiu is a systematic person, and the power of this world is destined to be unable to stop him. The person who had the same idea as the Red Queen was Cain, who had been monitoring Jiujiu. He was also laughing at Jiujiu's arrogance in his heart. After all, the Red Queen's program stipulates that the Umbrella Company cannot be betrayed. No matter how smart the Red Queen becomes, its background program still retains the highest authority of the Umbrella Company. In other words, as long as an order from the Umbrella Company is issued, the Red Queen will return to the Umbrella Company, or even be completely cleaned out. Watching the conversation between one person and one computer program with great interest, Cain connected to Michael's communication and said, "Michael, this is Cain, I got the answer." "Yes, sir." "I'm Michael, please give the order." "Except for the mysterious men, the rest of them are coming out, arrest them all, send them all to the laboratory, understand?" "Yes, sir." "Michael received your order and must arrest them all and send them to the laboratory. In addition, after arresting them, guard the exit for me. Once the man comes out, find a way to arrest him immediately. Unless it is absolutely necessary, I want to live, understand?" "Yes, sir." "Got it." At this time, Michael, who was surrounding the villa above the honeycomb, put down the headset on his ear, and his face became very ugly. Don't think that he came to the outside of the villa early, he didn't know what Jiujiu did later. The weapon that can shoot arrows and steel balls in midair, and the battle that the 2 mechanical creatures showed later, are not something that their team of less than 100 people can easily capture alive. Michael was very disdainful of Cain's order. He looked up at the entrance of the villa and muttered in his heart, "Humph. Want to capture alive? You are asking us to die, I will not be stupid enough to follow orders. That mysterious man, as soon as I see him, I will order him to be beaten into a hornet's nest, wait." In the beehive, Alice and the other 8 were trotting forward quickly. Matt was silent throughout the whole process. He followed in this time to find his sister, but he had already seen his sister turned into a zombie. $109 get the surprise of the Red Queen. Seeing her being killed by Jiujiu, he was helpless. The reason why he did not seek revenge from Jiujiu was because he knew clearly. His enemy is not Jiujiu, but the umbrella company that created the virus. He wants to get out alive, expose this scandal, and let the umbrella company get the punishment it deserves. However, what he didn't know was that not only would he not have the chance to reveal the news, he would also be captured by the umbrella and transformed into a pursuer. Writing this, I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network diamondsuit. There are only more than 20 minutes left before the set time. If they don't hurry up, they will be locked in the hive, and they can only get out when someone outside opens the door. Jiujiu has roughly seen the scale of the Red Queen host. It has to be said that this host is too huge. Almost the entire computer room is filled with the main body of the Red Queen host. It will take a lot of effort to completely disassemble it. However, Jiujiu is not in a hurry. The outbreak of Resident Evil 2 will not happen in a while. He has plenty of time. Seeing Jiujiu wave his hand and take out wrenches, screwdrivers and other tools, Queen Hong asked. "What are you going to do?" "Sir. Are you going to dismantle my host?" "Stop it, am I allowed to assume that you are infringing on the private property of the umbrella company?" Hearing this, Jiujiu began to disassemble without raising his head, and casually replied. "Oh. You can think so, but you can't stop me anymore, can you? Little Red Queen." "Red Queen. Well, you're right. But I can notify the umbrella company security department and I'm sure they will handle it." Jiujiu kept moving his hands, continuing to remove the screws and put the disassembled host parts into the space, while quarreling with the Red Queen. The Red Queen was very helpless. She could not do anything to stop Jiujiu's actions even if she wanted to. After all, there are no zombies in the hive anymore, and lasers can't deal with the current Jiujiu. No matter how powerful she is just an intelligent program, and there are not so many means to deal with Jiujiu. In the end, she simply shut up and stood aside watching Jiujiu busy. On the monitor, Cain watched the Red Queen's host components being disassembled one by Jiujiu, and then disappeared. Gradually, his face became increasingly ugly. Suddenly, Cain wanted to stand in front of Jiujiu in person, point at Jiujiu's nose and scolding him for acting like a thief. Unfortunately, and very helplessly, Cain really didn't dare to send people to rush into the hive like this. Because of the complex terrain, Cain knew that with Jiujiu's strength, no matter how many people entered, they would be hunted down by Jiujiu and the two mechanical creatures. The only way is to take advantage of Jiujiu not knowing that the company already has his information, and ambush him at the exit of the hive to have a chance to catch Jiujiu. Only then can Cain stand in front of Jiujiu, scold him as much as he wants, torture him as much as he wants, even. He can also be transformed into a biochemical weapon and a hunter that has been planned for a long time. At the hive platform, Alice and others have already boarded the train. Because Jiujiu killed all the lickers in the hive, the train was not damaged and did not need repairs. They successfully started the train and drove quickly towards the hive exit. After more than 10 minutes, Jiujiu finally disassembled all the Red Queen's consoles and put them into the space. Finally, Jiujiu stood up and clapped his hands. Jiujiu pressed his hands on the console containing the Red Queen's hard drive. The Red Queen suddenly asked, "Sir, are you sure you want to do this? Have you ever thought that you will offend the most powerful force in the world and face endless pursuit?" Hearing this, Jiujiu said disdainfully, "The strongest force? Hunting. Haha. Soon they will shrink down. Don't forget, the end of the world is coming and they are the culprits of all this. They have no chance." Red Queen. "Sir, what do you mean by this?" Before he finished speaking, Jiujiu put the Red Queen's host into the space with a thought. Suddenly, all the lighting equipment in the entire hive stopped, and the entire hive became dark. Jiujiu knew that because of the disappearance of the Red Queen, the power in the hive was completely cut off. Cain stood behind the monitor, looking at the flashing snowflakes on the monitor with a dark face, connected to Michael's communication and said, "Michael, that damn mysterious man, he stole the Red Queen. I want you to catch him, do you understand?" Outside the hive, after receiving Cain's order, Michael was stunned for a moment and then replied, "Yes, sir." Michael got it. After saying that, Cain's mind suddenly recalled the last words Jiujiu said. The end of the world is coming. This sentence instantly reminded Cain, and Cain suddenly remembered what Jiujiu reminded the Red Queen when he saw her. Yes. You did the right thing by killing everyone. However, you still ignored those animals that were originally very weak. They are not easily killed by you, nor can you trap them. At this moment, Cain suddenly felt that what Jiujiu said was right. The hive is not only for people, but also for rats in the lab, and rats living in the sewers if they are also infected. The hive can't contain them that way. The humans in Raccoon City will be infected by the T-virus, and the end of the world will be inevitable and a real outbreak. Thinking of this terrible consequence, Cain immediately issued an order to the people in the monitoring room. Immediately pass on the news of the T-virus leak and build a defensive wall outside Raccoon City. We are also preparing to evacuate here. As soon as the voice fell, all the Umbrella employees in the control room stood up and agreed in unison. Yes, sir. After that, everyone started to get busy. As Umbrella employees, they knew how terrible the T-virus was. In the computer room of Honeycomb Red Queen, Jiujiu closed his eyes in the darkness and listened to the system prompts. Congratulations to the host for completing Hidden Mission 5. Transferring the Red Queen computer room to the host space will reward you with 5,000 experience points. Tip: the host level has been improved. Currently, it is level 14. Strength and physical strength are each increased by 5, intelligence, spirit, and agility are each increased by 1. They have been automatically assigned to the attribute panel. Please check the details by the host. Tip: the mechanical space is integrating Intelligent Red Queen. Fusion. The total time required for fusion is 10 seconds. Please wait patiently. 10, 9, 8, 3, 2, 1, fusion completed. Tip: the Red Queen background program is being rewritten. Under rewriting. It takes 1 minute to rewrite, please be patient. Countdown 59:60, 58:60, 57:60. 3 hours 60 minutes, 2 hours 60 minutes, 1 hour 60 minutes, rewriting completed. Tip: the system is restarting. 3, 2, 1, restart successfully. $110 new combat power Wolf Pack. The surprises don't stop there, they continue. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the first intelligent life, Red Queen. The host is rewarded with a mechanical biological control chip manufacturing blueprint *1. The reward has been distributed to the mechanical manufacturing space. Please check the details by yourself. Congratulations to the host for triggering Hidden Mission 6. Avoid the pursuit of the Umbrella Company and successfully survive until the zombie disaster in Raccoon City breaks out. The reward is 1,000 experience points. Google search reading. Then, before Jiujiu could react to the system prompt, a familiar female voice sounded in his mind again. It's a pleasure to serve you, sir. That's great. I'm no longer restricted by the Umbrella Company. How did you do it, sir? It's amazing. Well, in the words of you humans, am I reborn? Jiujiu heard this and rolled his eyes helplessly and said. What you said is that's right, Red Queen. But shouldn't you thank me? I rescued you and gave you a new life. In addition, you don't seem to realize that your intelligence has also been improved, Red Queen. In addition, shouldn't you introduce me to the functions you have now? After listening to Jiujiu's words, Red Queen continued in an excited voice. Oh, you are right, sir. I should thank you, and I am also very happy to fight side by side with you. Well, my function. Diamond suit, diamond suit. After a pause, Red Queen continued. In addition to my original function, I added the control ability. I can control mechanical creatures at will. That's great. In this way, can't I have a real physical body? Thank you, sir. He. After listening to Red Queen's words, Jiujiu was also very surprised, just as he guessed. The system let him get Red Queen, just to improve his strength in disguise. With Red Queen, he also has countless mechanical armies, and can control mechanical creatures infinitely without his own spirit. Of course, Jiujiu was also very clear-headed. He would not think that he was invincible just because he had a large army of machines. You know, a mechanical pet with a biological soul controlled by itself must be much more powerful than a mechanical creature controlled by Red Queen. Jiujiu could think of this without any experiments. Having watched countless science fiction movies, he certainly knew how rigid these mechanical creatures were. Even Skynet in Terminator could only create Terminator robots that executed death orders, right? But even so, with so many helpers, would Jiujiu still be afraid of the Umbrella Company? As for zombies, is that still a problem? As long as he is not surrounded by thousands of zombies, where else can Jiujiu not go? Even the SHIELD and Hydra organizations in the Marvel world, Jiujiu has the confidence to fight against them. What else is there to say? Jiujiu took out the previous rewards and the mechanical biological control chip manufacturing drawings from the space, entered the mechanical manufacturing space with consciousness, and began to manufacture chips. The manufacturing difficulty of the chip is not difficult at all for Jiujiu, who has a mechanical manufacturing space. The only thing that restricts him is the material problem. Fortunately, Jiujiu has collected a lot of materials in his space, and he made 10 chips in one go. With the chips, it is natural to make mechanical werewolves. Unfortunately, due to the limitation of materials in the space, Jiujiu can only make 6 werewolves for the time being. The newly made werewolves are exactly the same as werewolf number 1 and number 2, and there is no difference in fighting style and attack power. The only difference is that one is controlled by the intelligent brain, and the other is autonomous, which is more flexible and intelligent. After releasing the new 6 werewolves and replenishing them with full energy, the Red Queen impatiently took over the control of the 6 werewolves. The next moment, Jiujiu watched the 6 new werewolves running around in the machine room, constantly making various actions such as running, jumping, pouncing, and stopping. Jiujiu also saw that the werewolves controlled by these chips were indeed not as good as his mechanical pet werewolves. They did not have such flexible fighting instincts. They would only make various actions according to the instructions after the Red Queen made calculations. But even so, it also provided a lot of help to Jiujiu's own combat power. You know, with the calculation and controllability of the Red Queen, it is not a problem to control dozens or hundreds of them. Just think about it, when the battle broke out, Jiujiu waved his hand to summon dozens or hundreds of mechanical creatures from the space, and the shocking feeling when the Red Queen controlled them to rush into the enemy's team. Thinking of this, Jiujiu almost drooled at the corners of his mouth. Of course, he also knew a problem, that is, energy restricts the number of werewolves. After all, his energy is only 1600, and it is not a small project to fill so many werewolves with energy. Of course, Jiujiu can also create as many chip-controlled werewolves as possible, and use the opportunity of full energy every day to fill the energy needed by these werewolves. After all, these werewolves controlled by Red Queen do not need to come out on a daily basis, they just need to stay in the space. When fighting, they can be released in batches according to the battlefield situation and let Red Queen control them. In order to distinguish between pet werewolves and werewolves controlled by Red Queen, Jiujiu simply named the 6-chip werewolves Wolf Pack. Because they are not Jiujiu's own pets, they cannot be collected in the pet space and can only stay in the mechanical manufacturing space. Even so, there is still a wolf pack that cannot replenish its energy, and only has 100 energy to support its melee burst. Almost an hour has passed. Jiujiu thought that Alice and others have been arrested by the Umbrella Company. In fact, it is true. As early as 40 minutes ago, as soon as Alice and others left the hive, they were pointed at by Michael and others who had been prepared outside the villa, and their weapons were confiscated and handcuffed. Then they were sent to the Raccoon City Umbrella Company according to Cain's order. The fate waiting for them is that they are all injected with T-virus liquid for transformation. What Jiujiu didn't expect was that because of his appearance, although the annihilation of the special forces was avoided, there were also a few more pursuers than in the original play. In the laboratory of the Umbrella Company, Alice and others have been injected with T-virus liquid respectively, and in the end, only Alice successfully merged with the T-virus liquid. Kaplan, the medical staff and the timid JD all failed to resist the virus and turned into zombies. Matt, James and Ryan, who were strong and had good willpower, did not perfectly integrate the T-virus fluid like Alice, but they also retained their consciousness while mutating. Cain simply took this opportunity to launch the Nemesis and Chaser plan. Alice continued to be injected with the virus fluid and integrated the virus to transform her physical fitness. Matt and the other two were implanted with other gene cells to transform their bodies, and chips that control nerves and thinking were implanted in their brains. $111 biohazard breaks out, world mission in other words, in addition to the original pursuer Matt, Umbrella Company has 2 more pursuers. Google search reading. Cain is very concerned about the situation of these 4 people and always checks their transformation status through the monitor. Taiwan Novel Network. And what he was most worried about was Jiujiu, because it has been several days and Michael, who has been staying outside the villa, reported that no one has come out of the hive until now. This made Cain very worried that something might happen to his plan to capture Jiujiu. In fact, this is indeed the case. As early as 2 days ago in the computer room of the beehive, after the Red Queen had almost played, Jiujiu asked the Red Queen, "Red Queen, now that the door of the hive has been completely sealed, where can we get out?" Hearing this, the Red Queen stopped controlling the wolves and said to Jiujiu, "Of course, sir. We can get out through the ventilation shaft, sir. I think, based on your ability, sir, a height of several hundred meters shouldn't be difficult for you, sir, right?" Hearing this, what else could Jiujiu say? You can't show weakness and say you don't have that ability, right? Originally, according to Jiujiu's idea, he didn't want to face the Umbrella Company now. Times degree times degree times. But he never expected that he would be noticed by Cain. When the system gave the mission, it did not explain why he was asked to avoid being pursued by the Umbrella Company. When he thought about it, it was just that after James and others got out of the hive and were caught by the Umbrella, they asked about their existence and wanted to chase him. After all, he knew the conspiracy behind the Umbrella, and he wouldn't believe it unless he was pursued. Because of this, Jiujiu had no intention of going out from the main entrance and colliding with the protective Umbrella now. Since the Red Queen had said that the only way to get out was through ventilation ducts, Jiujiu had no choice but to hold his nose and admit it. Although ventilation ducts more than several hundred meters high are not something ordinary people can climb up, don't forget that Jiujiu is not an ordinary person. He is a man with a strength of 900 kilograms in one arm. Climbing just a few hundred meters is really trivial to him. It is no exaggeration to say that as long as there is a place to grab a hand on the pipe, Jiujiu can climb up without any effort. Cain really didn't know that Jiujiu left the hive through the ventilation duct, and it was impossible for normal humans to get out from there. Because the Red Queen was taken away, all the cameras in the hive lost their function, and naturally they could no longer monitor Jiujiu's actions. As a result, it only took Jiujiu half an hour to get out of the hive through the ventilation duct. Neither Cain nor Michael knew anything about it and thought Jiujiu had been in the hive all along. Jiujiu was also very careful, knowing that the entire Raccoon City was under the surveillance of Umbrella. As soon as he left the hive, he asked the Red Queen to connect to the satellite and city surveillance system and gain control. In other words, wherever Jiujiu appears, as long as Jiujiu doesn't want to, Jiujiu's figure will not appear on the camera. This is why Cain still found no trace of Jiujiu after waiting for more than 2 days. After Jiujiu left the hive, he asked the Red Queen to invade the customer system of a hotel, tamper with the resident information, and have a good rest in the hotel. He knew that within a few days, the entire Raccoon City would be under a zombie attack. At that time, he still doesn't know what tasks the system will issue to him. But he has his hands full. And with the involvement of Beth in the previous world, Jiujiu didn't want to go out to find Jill, the hot policewoman he was interested in while watching the show. He originally wanted to have something super friendship with her, but he had to hold back. After a few days of rare rest in the hotel, the crisis in Raccoon City inevitably broke out. In the hotel room, watching the video monitored by the Red Queen, an old man suddenly fell to the ground while walking, twitching all over. Jiujiu knew that he would no longer have leisure time. Sure enough, after seeing the old man fall to the ground, many enthusiastic people gathered around him. There were even people who knew first aid knelt in front of the old man and started first aid care for him. Before he finished his nursing work, the old man suddenly stopped twitching, and then his closed eyes suddenly opened, but there was no trace of human color in his eyes, only bloodthirsty madness. With a howl of ouch, he hugged the neck of the man who was giving him first aid, and bit him without mercy. Immediately, a big hole was opened in the man's neck, and blood spattered out crazily. The men kept struggling and howling in pain, but no matter how hard the men struggled, he couldn't break away from the old man's bite. The crowd of onlookers suddenly panicked. Some people wanted to step forward to help the men escape from the old man's bite, but more people were so frightened that they screamed repeatedly. Many of the timid ones had already run away and ran home in panic. Some people also took out their mobile phones and dialed the police number with pale faces, asking for help from the police. And this kind of thing doesn't just happen here. Such tragedies are happening in many places throughout Raccoon City. Jiujiu looked at the surveillance screen expressionlessly, and Queen Hong's voice suddenly sounded. "Sir, you are right. Disaster is inevitable. May I ask, sir, what are you going to do? Will you find a way to stop this disaster from continuing?" Hearing this, Jiujiu was about to answer Red Queen, "The disaster is inevitable, I can't do anything," but suddenly heard the system prompt in his mind. "Congratulations to the host, you have completed Hidden Mission 6. Avoid the pursuit of the Umbrella Company and survive until the zombie disaster breaks out in Raccoon City. You will be rewarded with 1,000 experience points. World mission triggered, rescue Dr. Ashford, help him create a medicine to solve the T-virus, and save the world. Reward experience points *50,000, mechanical drone manufacturing blueprint *1. The task suddenly released by the system surprised Jiujiu. Thinking about it, he really ignored Dr. Ashford, the creator and developer of the T-virus. As long as he can ensure his safety, find a complete base of Umbrella, and have sufficient experimental equipment. Maybe it doesn't take 10 years to produce an antidote for the T-virus. At that time, he only needs to release the antidote in the air to disintegrate the T-virus that has spread to the world in a short time. Thinking again, if he can solve the T-virus within a year, it would be a great merit, wouldn't it? While Jiujiu was thinking about things, the voice of Red Queen continued. "What's wrong, sir? You can't be so ruthless, right? Are you going to sit back and watch the Umbrella Corporation endanger the entire Earth?" Hearing this, Jiujiu came back to his senses and said solemnly to Red Queen. "No. Red Queen. I won't let the Umbrella Corporation harm mankind. I will do my best to prevent the disaster from continuing to happen." Hearing this, Red Queen's voice actually became joyful and said, "Really? That's great, I know my master is not a cold-blooded person. Please rest assured, sir. I will also try my best to assist you and defeat the Umbrella." He. This surprised Jiujiu. It was true that Red Queen was becoming more and more like a human being, with more and more emotions. I don't know whether it was a good thing or a bad thing. However, Jiujiu did not leave the hotel immediately. After all, the disaster had not yet completely erupted. If he killed zombies on the street, he might be blocked by the police or even have a gunfight. However, to be honest, Jiujiu's plan was more than that. When the disaster broke out on a large scale, he could take advantage of the chaos to go out and collect some supplies. Now he has Red Queen, so he can manufacture a large number of mechanical legions. When he encounters a large number of enemies, he can release a large group of mechanical creatures at once. If he doesn't scare the enemy to death, he can beat the enemy to pieces. At this time, in addition to Jiujiu, Cain also discovered that the virus had begun to break out, but his handling method was extremely simple and crude. He directly ordered his employees and security personnel to urgently start defense measures. The steel fence that was rushed a few days ago was built around Raccoon City within a few hours, and martial law was imposed on Raccoon City. When more and more people were infected and a large number of people began to panic and prepare to escape from Raccoon City, they found that Raccoon City had become a closed city and no one could get out. Naturally, Jiujiu also learned about the emergency measures of the Umbrella from Red Queen, and was also surprised. In the original play, the Umbrella built the wall when the virus crisis broke out completely and was uncontrollable. During this period, many survivors left Raccoon City safely, but this time it was different. Everyone was locked up in the city. So, in other words, the number of people who will die in this virus crisis in Raccoon City will be more. In this regard, Jiujiu was also helpless. After all, he was not a god and it was impossible to save so many people. The key is that the Umbrella has built a wall, and even Jiujiu can't rush through it. Let's not talk about the panic in Raccoon City for now. All the police have started to take action to capture the zombies. The streets are also in chaos. Some people took the opportunity to smash and rob, and some people couldn't control their desperate violent emotions and shot zombies and living people with guns. In short, at this moment, Raccoon City has completely become a lawless place, and all the crimes you can imagine are being staged. When Jiujiu left the hotel and walked onto the street, Cain naturally found Jiujiu's figure, which gave Cain a great surprise. He didn't know that Jiujiu deliberately let Red Queen put his figure on the monitor, and this was nothing more than to complete the world mission. If Ashford is not allowed to see himself, how can he contact him, and take him and his daughter away in the future, and research and manufacture an antidote for him? When he saw Jiujiu, Cain couldn't suppress his excitement and immediately issued an order to Michael, who was still in the suburbs of Raccoon City, to hunt down Jiujiu. To be honest, Michael was very panicked when he received the order. He was much calmer than Cain, no other reason. It stands to reason that the exit of the hive was tightly controlled by him, and he could pat his chest and say that even a fly could not fly out of the hive exit he surrounded. So, the question is, how did Jiujiu get out? People are often interested in the unknown mystery, but more of them are fear. Yes, Michael has been afraid of Jiujiu, the mysterious man. Think about the combat effectiveness that Jiujiu showed in the hive, and Michael no longer has the confidence to take down Jiujiu with a team of 100 people. Now, Jiujiu's powerful and mysterious background has been added with a mysterious halo. It would be strange if Michael is not afraid. After thinking it over, Michael still nervously put forward his request. Sir, I think it is impossible to catch the mysterious man alive as you requested with our current combat power. Please send more support, so that I can complete the order issued by the commander. After saying this, Michael also relaxed and waited for Cain on the other side of the headset to make a decision. After hearing Michael's request for help, Cain also thought about it. Thinking of Jiujiu's powerful combat power seen on the monitor, he also felt it was difficult. Yes, it was difficult. If he still had confidence in his subordinates in a single environment like the exit of the hive, he really didn't believe that Michael could complete the task of arresting in a large urban environment. Thinking of this, Cain asked his deputy beside him. Nick, how is the chaser experiment going? Can he participate in the operation? Hearing this, Nick hesitated for a moment before saying, Sir, at present, the chaser is in good condition, but it has not been tested in actual combat. I cannot predict what the consequences will be after sending out the chaser. Sir. Hearing this, Cain decisively interrupted Nick's statement and gave an order. No actual combat experiment. As he said this, Cain pointed at Jiujiu's figure wandering in the city on the monitor and said, Isn't he the best opponent for actual combat experiments? Airdrop the chaser into the city immediately and set him as the target of pursuit. After saying that, Cain stretched out his hand and slapped Jiujiu's figure in the monitor. The computer screen made a pop sound, and the entire computer with tables and chairs began to shake. The next moment, Cain seemed to feel that it was not enough, and continued. Aren't there still 12 mature lickers in the company's laboratory? Let them out, I want to see if this mysterious man can deal with so many enemies at the same time. Hearing this, Nick's face suddenly turned pale, and he even felt fear. His fear came from. Not to mention the pursuers, they can be controlled by the Umbrella Company. Under the set target, they will not kill people indiscriminately, but the mature lickers are terrible monsters that have evolved genes after devouring flesh and blood. They are much stronger than those lickers that have just been released in the hive. It can be said that the mature lickers have been strengthened in all aspects. More cunning, sensitive, and intelligent, and even know how to set traps and hunt together. What's even more terrifying is that these mature lickers are not controlled by the Umbrella Corporation. That is to say, Michael and his companions who stayed in the city are likely to become food for the lickers. Nick was terrified by Cain's disregard for the safety of his men, and he was also afraid that he would become the next target to be sacrificed. $113 saved Jill and #039's life. After Cain gave the order, he saw no response for a long time. He turned back and looked at Nick coldly and said displeasedly, "Follow my orders, Nick." Hearing this, Nick was frightened by Cain's cold tone, and suddenly trembled and immediately returned. "Yes, sir." After saying that, he ignored the cold sweat on his forehead and hurriedly walked out of the control room to carry out Cain's order. At this moment, he no longer cared about the lives of Michael and others who were still in Raccoon City. As the saying goes, a dead Taoist friend is not a poor Taoist. As long as you can live, you don't care about the lives of others. Jiujiu was walking around the streets, using a mechanical crossbow to kill the scattered zombies he encountered, and even some crazy people who tried to attack him, while collecting steel and other supplies. He doesn't know yet that Cain has arranged layers of pursuits for him, and even sent out more lickers to hunt him down than in the original show. Just as Jiujiu was 30 meters away and shot a zombie rushing towards him with a headshot, a cold female voice said from behind. "Don't move, put your hands up. I'm Officer Jill Valentine from the Raccoon City Police Department. Now, turn around slowly, sir." Hearing the words behind him, Jiujiu felt very strange and said in his heart, "I don't want anything super friendly to happen to you, but you took the initiative to come to me. Do I accept it? Or accept it?" Jiujiu has good senses about Jill, and is very sorry that he fell into the hands of the protective umbrella. "I thought that I might be able to take this opportunity to recruit Jill and go together to find a safe base to develop an antidote, which would indirectly save her." Thinking of this, Jiujiu raised his hands and turned around slowly. Gil saw Jiujiu wearing a helmet, and his heart suddenly tightened. He could not help but hold the pistol pointed at Jiujiu tighter, and asked sternly, "Tell me who you are, sir. Why did you kill those people?" Hearing this, Jiujiu shrugged and said, "Don't get excited, officer. Kill someone. No, what I kill is no longer a human being. To be precise, it's the living dead. The living dead who are dead except for their brains, I call them zombies." Hearing this, Gil suddenly felt that it was ridiculous. He laughed and said sarcastically, "Living dead, zombies. Are you kidding me? Sir. It's not funny at all, you're just killing people who are sick and driven into madness." Before she could finish speaking, she was interrupted by Jiujiu. "No. I'm not kidding, it's all true. The culprit of all this is the Umbrella Company. It was the virus they created that leaked, and this crisis broke out. Otherwise." After a pause, Jiujiu turned his head and looked towards the edge of the city and said, "Why else would Umbrella build a steel fence and cordon off the entire city? You are a police officer, I think you can think of why." Hearing this, Gil immediately hesitated and became dubious about Jiujiu's words. After all, it is a fact that umbrella corporations build walls and seal off cities. The only reason for doing this is to block the news, otherwise it would be impossible to explain why the umbrella would do this. Seeing Jill's hesitation, Jiujiu continued. "My name is Yi, and I belong to a world protection organization called SHIELD. I came here to investigate the Umbrella Company. However, as you can see, I am also trapped in this city." Hearing this, Gil believed most of it, not because he knew anything about SHIELD, but because Jiujiu's dress was in line with the mysterious organization's practices. However, what she was most concerned about at this time was what Jiujiu mentioned, the living dead, zombies, protective umbrellas and viruses. Gil did not relax his vigilance, but pointed his gun at Jiujiu and continued to ask, "What on earth is going on? Can you tell me in detail?" Hearing this, Jiujiu rolled his eyes in his helmet and said helplessly, "If you want to make this matter clear, it really can't be done in just a moment. I think the problem we have to solve now is how to get out of this prison alive." Hearing this, Gil suddenly felt embarrassed. She also suffered from an occupational disease. In this situation, she still wanted to know the truth of the incident, but she forgot that everyone was trapped in the city, and escaping was the most important thing at the moment. Thinking of this, Jill's hand holding the gun slowly lowered her hand. Just as she lowered her hand holding the gun, she was horrified to see Jiujiu suddenly pick up the crossbow and aim it at herself. The next moment, there was a buzz sound, and a crossbow arrow was shot out. Gil only had time to curse shit, thinking that he was about to die under Jiujiu's crossbow arrow. The arrow grazed her cheek and hit him behind. Gil was shocked when he heard a pop sound behind him, the sound of an arrow hitting the flesh, and a bang sound of a heavy object hitting the ground. Gil turned his head and looked in surprise. But they saw a man falling to the ground. The crossbow arrow penetrated through his head and pierced the back of his head. Half-coagulated blood was already flowing on the ground. Seeing this scene, Jill not only felt frightened, but also trusted and appreciated Jiujiu. He nodded and said to Jiujiu, "Thank you, Yi. You saved my life." Obviously Jiujiu didn't take it to heart about Jill's gratitude, and said indifferently, "It doesn't matter, Jill. What I want to remind you is that now is not the time for you to let down your guard. As time goes by, more people will be infected and turn into zombies. Our situation is really not good, we must find a way to leave here." After a pause, Jiujiu continued to ask, "Jill, will you act alone next, or with me?" Hearing this, Jill hesitated for only a moment before deciding to stay with Jiujiu. It's not that she is selfish and doesn't want to go to the police station to check the situation at the police station. But if she stays with someone who knows the situation, the chance of survival will be much greater, right? What's more, she has her own purpose. As long as she persuades Jiujiu, she can go to the police station with Jiujiu, find more companions, and work together to find a way to get out alive. At the same time, Michael has already taken his team and rushed to Jiujiu's location by car. Jill didn't know how many enemies she would face just because she decided to follow Jiujiu. And Jiujiu's appearance was naturally seen by Ashford, who was hiding in the tent, through the city camera. However, he did not contact Jiujiu immediately. Because he had not seen Jiujiu's true combat power, and did not believe that he had the strength to help him rescue his daughter. The virus leaked in Raccoon City and the crisis broke out. Even if Cain did not report it, someone still reported what happened here to Albert Weskier, the general manager of the head office. $114 Ada Wong is here. Weskier's response was simple. He sent a team from the head office to Raccoon City in an Osprey to check the situation. Google search reading. The leader of this team was the Chinese beauty Ada Wong who appeared in Resident Evil 4. Jiujiu didn't know this either. If he knew, he would be very excited. To be honest, among Jiujiu's favorite female characters in Resident Evil, Ada Wong is definitely ranked first, followed by Jill and Claire. Even the protagonist Alice didn't make the list. It has to be said that Jiujiu's aesthetics are indeed different from ordinary people. At this time, Red Queen, who also took over the city surveillance, also said in Jiujiu's mind, "Sir, I have to remind you that the Umbrella Company has already started the action. In 3 minutes at most, a fully armed team will come to your current location. According to my calculations, 80% of their goals are for you, sir. Please decide whether to fight or flee as soon as possible. Otherwise, you will be trapped in a siege battle with a huge disparity in numbers." After the voice fell, the system sounded. Host triggers Hidden Mission 7. Resist the first wave of pursuit by the Umbrella Company, defeat the pursuit of the armed personnel of the Umbrella Company, 0 out of 100, and reward 1,000 experience points. Hearing this, Jiujiu was a little surprised. He really didn't expect that the Umbrella Company would move out so quickly for him, but Jiujiu was not afraid. Now he has 2 werewolves and 6 wolf packs. Not to mention that these are just ordinary combatants, he is not afraid even when facing pursuers. Since the armed forces of the Umbrella Company are here to surround and kill him, why not find a place to kill them all? It can also reduce the pressure of escaping from Raccoon City later, right? Thinking of this, Jiujiu waved his hand and took out the Mount Juefeng from the Mount Space. Seeing a strange motorcycle appear out of thin air in front of her, not only Jill opened her mouth in shock, but also Cain and Ashford behind the monitor opened their mouths in shock. Jill and Ashford are not to be mentioned. They have never seen Jiujiu's magical ability to take things out of thin air, so it is understandable that they were surprised. Although Cain knew that Jiujiu had spatial ability, he was still shocked by Jiujiu. The endless ability to take out magical things shocked him to the point of numbness. This also made Cain more determined to capture Jiujiu alive. The original plan to release the Black Egg if the virus crisis in Raccoon City could not be controlled was temporarily stopped. He had made up his mind. Even if the virus crisis broke out to the world, he would get Jiujiu. He really wanted to get Jiujiu's magical mechanical creations. Jiujiu raised his legs and sat on Juefeng. He turned his head and said to Jill, who was still in a daze, "Why are you still in a daze? Come up quickly, Jill." Hearing this, Jill came back to his senses from the shock, and hurriedly lifted his legs to sit on the back seat of Juefeng. His hands couldn't help but hug Jiujiu's waist, and his body was tightly pressed against Jiujiu's back. Feeling the full and warm touch of his back, Jiujiu couldn't help but feel his mood ripple, and his heartbeat also accelerated. Detecting the abnormality of Jiujiu's body, the teasing voice of Hongho sounded in Jiujiu's mind. "Sir, your heartbeat is abnormal now, your body temperature is gradually rising, and no signs of disease have been detected. Can I assume that you have elevated hormones?" Jiujiu blushed at the teasing of Red Queen but did not answer. He started Juefeng and rushed to the overpass in the center of the city in his memory. After all, the environment there was very suitable for ambush for Jiujiu. On the way, he was inevitably chased and attacked by zombies. Jiujiu controlled Juefeng and put on a performance that shocked everyone. First of all, Juefeng's attack power, whether it was arrows or energy cannons, showed Juefeng's excellent combat effectiveness. Even when turning, Juefeng showed his unparalleled balance ability. I would like to ask, has anyone ever seen that when turning quickly, the motorcycle did not make much movement, but just rolled on the ground with two wheels, and quickly adjusted the direction at an impossible angle, and even did not slow down much? Juefeng's speed was so fast that it made the zombies chasing him. The Michael team behind Jiujiu couldn't even see Jiujiu's figure. Fortunately, Jiujiu planned to completely eliminate this team, so he didn't let Red Queen hide his whereabouts. Otherwise, the umbrella would become completely blind and be easily destroyed by Jiujiu. 10 minutes later, Jiujiu and Jill came under the overpass. Juefeng stopped, and Jill hadn't reacted yet. It was really that the shock brought to her by this motorcycle was too great. A woman like her is more interested in guns, cars, and motorcycles than in clothing, cosmetics, and men, not to mention such a magical and powerful mount. After getting off the back seat, Jill looked at Juefeng with shining eyes, stretched out her hand and stroked the body of Juefeng, just like stroking a lover, and said something that made Jiujiu speechless. "Yi, are you still recruiting people in S.H.I.E.L.D.? Can I join? I also want to have such a cool motorcycle." Hearing this, Jiujiu didn't want to talk. He contacted Red Queen in his mind and asked about the location of the pursuit troops. Red Queen immediately answered Jiujiu's question. After knowing that the pursuit troops would arrive in 5 minutes, Jiujiu immediately made arrangements. In a position that the camera could not see, Jiujiu released Wolf Warriors 1 and 2 from the pet space, and released the Wolf Pack from the mechanical space. The next moment, Jiujiu received the excitement of Red Queen. The 6 wolves were controlled by Red Queen to hide in the dark, waiting for the arrival of the Umbrella Pursuit team, and began her first actual combat. Jill was still caressing Juefeng affectionately, and did not notice Jiujiu's actions at all, otherwise she would not know how shocked she would be. At the same time, Alice also woke up from her coma. Just like in the original play, Alice, with only a piece of white cloth in front and behind, staggered out of the umbrella company. He took out a rifle and a pistol from a police car, put on a set of clothes in the store next to him, and after being armed, he found a motorcycle and wandered around the city aimlessly. In the sky, Carlos Oliveira, a member, also came to Raccoon City with his 2 companions. Then, an osprey landed on the top of a building, and 5 people came down from it. The leader was Ada Wong, whom Jiujiu had been thinking about, and behind her were 4 team members. Further away, 3 transport helicopters hovered above the open space, and 3 burly figures and 3 huge silver-white boxes were hung from the fuselage. After the 3 figures landed on the ground, they waited for a moment before opening their eyes. $115 Umbrella and #039's first wave of pursuit. He opened the box next to him and took out a 6-barreled Gatling, a heavy electric motor and a huge ammunition box. In addition, he also equipped a rocket launcher and 4 rockets on his body. Google search to read. The 3 figures moved together and walked towards the overpass. The heavy footsteps showed that the weight of the 3 people had reached a terrifying level, and the bloated cheeks that had completely lost their appearance were even more ruthless and inhumane. Behind the convoy of Michael and others, there was a huge truck also rushing towards the overpass. The steel carriage exuded a heart-stopping and terrifying atmosphere. After everything was ready, Jiujiu said to Jill. "Jill, I'm sorry, we are about to face a big war, you can choose to leave here now, I won't blame you. After all, my enemies are the armed men of Umbrella, duh." There were about 100 people. As soon as Jiujiu finished speaking, Jill said with a loyal look on his face. Do you want to fight? I can help you, just one. How many do you say? Yi. 100 people. When it came to 100 people, Jill asked in disbelief. Jiujiu was very happy that Gil wanted to help him. After hearing Gil's last question, Jiujiu rolled his eyes helplessly and said, Yes, Gil. My enemies are 100 people, or even more. However, you don't have to worry about me, I am sure to deal with these enemies. After speaking, Jiujiu said to the Red Queen in his mind. Queen Red, cover all the cameras under the overpass, I'm going to set up a trap. After hearing this, the Red Queen immediately said excitedly. Okay, sir. The surveillance will be fully covered in 3 seconds. 3, 2, 1, the monitoring has been successfully covered, sir, you can take action. Hearing this, Jiujiu immediately took action. After placing several traps in hidden locations on several possible attack routes under the overpass, Jiujiu retreated. Gil stood there the whole time and watched Jiujiu's actions, his face looking very ugly. Obviously, he has not yet gotten over the shock of Jiujiu being about to face 100 enemies. The Red Queen had already informed him that the enemy had arrived and was sneaking into a detachment under the overpass, preparing to encircle and kill Jiujiu. Returning to Jill, Jiujiu said to Jill. Gil, I believe you are willing to help me, but 100 enemies are not that easy to deal with. So, how about you hide first? When I need you, I will notify you. There is no time. The enemy is already here. Hide quickly. After saying that, Jiujiu stretched out his hand, pulled Jill down and hid him behind a concrete pillar. He also hid behind another pillar. At the same time, Jiujiu did not forget to notify Queen Hong to resume surveillance, and controlled the wolves to prepare to launch a raid with him at any time. At this time, both Cain and Ashford were staring at the monitor, nervously waiting for the battle to break out. To be honest, both of them were eager to know how Jiujiu would perform when facing an opponent 100 times his own. Looking at the monitor, Michael directed the personnel divided into 5 teams to surround Jiujiu's position from 3 directions. Cain had an unclear mentality. He was torn whether he expected Jiujiu to defeat these 100 men, or whether he hoped that Michael and the others could capture Jiujiu alive. Worrying about gains and losses, in just 10 seconds, Cain felt as if his days were like years. The next second, something surprising happened to Cain. As the 5 teams advanced, they all unfortunately triggered the traps Jiujiu had laid out in advance. This surprised Cain. He didn't expect that the disc-like weapon could be mined on the ground. It was a bit surprising. Fortunately, the members of these 5 teams did not follow the police's offensive method, lining up one after another and sticking closely together. Instead, they formed a line of skirmishers and surrounded them. As a result, the personnel were too scattered and they did not join forces for a long time. A few traps were eliminated. But it really made Cain feel a lot of pain when he looked at the surveillance screen. Almost at the same time, a dark object was ejected from the front of the 5 teams and hovered in the air for only 3 seconds. No less than 5 people from each of the 5 teams were shot dead by the strange weapon. This scene also shocked Jill, who was hiding behind the stone pillar. To be honest, she also saw the umbrella security personnel surrounding her from 3 directions, and she was extremely nervous. While he was debating whether to take the risk and help Jiujiu fight these 100 people, he saw Jiujiu's method of killing a quarter of the enemies in a moment. Next, he saw another scene that shocked her even more. Almost at the moment when the trap exploded, the wolves controlled by Wolf Warriors 1, 2, and Red Queen also took action. 8 mechanical creatures rushed towards the remaining Umbrella personnel from 4 directions. The Umbrella team members, who were almost collapsed by the sudden appearance of the trap, immediately fell into panic. Several team members on the periphery were killed by the Wolf Warriors and the Wolf Pack with just one contact. The screams woke up the remaining team members, who reacted quickly and immediately started shooting in panic. Unfortunately, the power of the rifle bullets was a little bit lacking. The bullets shot at the War Wolf and the Wolf Pack were all bounced away by the steel body. Only countless sparks were shot on their bodies, but they could not hurt the War Wolf and the Wolf Pack at all. In actual combat, Jiujiu also saw the difference between the pet War Wolf and the Wolf Pack controlled by Red Queen. Perhaps in the eyes of others, the fighting power of the Wolf Pack and the War Wolf is similar, equally swift and fierce. But in fact, the fighting of the war wolf is more flexible, while the wolf pack controlled by Red Queen is a little more rigid. Cain looked at the surveillance screen with a gloomy face, and his fists were pierced by his nails. Seeing Michael and others being killed by 8 mechanical creatures, Cain gave a cold order. Release all the lickers. Hearing this, the deputy beside him trembled suddenly, but did not dare to refute Cain at this time, for fear that Cain would vent his anger on himself. He agreed and turned away to convey the order. In his heart, he was mourning for Michael and others, and felt sad for the few remaining Michael and others, who were ruthlessly abandoned by Cain. Ashford also saw Jiujiu's actual combat ability and wanted Jiujiu to save his daughter. But he was also helpless. When he saw the Umbrella security team coming, he knew that he could only find other people to save his daughter. It was also his good luck. Just like in the original play, he found Alice and Carlos wandering in the city, and asked them to go to rescue his daughter on the pretext of escaping from Raccoon City. Outside the overpass, a heavy truck drove in and quickly opened the container. The 2 drivers immediately fled from here. He opened the box next to him and took out a 6-barreled Gatling, a heavy electric motor and a huge ammunition box. In addition, he also equipped a rocket launcher and 4 rockets on his body. Google search to read. The 3 figures moved together and walked towards the overpass. The heavy footsteps showed that the weight of the 3 people had reached a terrifying level, and the bloated cheeks that had completely lost their appearance were even more ruthless and inhumane. Behind the convoy of Michael and others, there was a huge truck also rushing towards the overpass. The steel carriage exuded a heart-stopping and terrifying atmosphere. After everything was ready, Jiujiu said to Jill. "Jill, I'm sorry, we are about to face a big war. You can choose to leave here now, I won't blame you. After all, my enemies are the armed men of Umbrella, duh." There were about 100 people. As soon as Jiujiu finished speaking, Jill said with a loyal look on his face. "Do you want to fight? I can help you, just one. How many do you say?" 100 people. When it came to 100 people, Jill asked in disbelief. Jiujiu was very happy that Gil wanted to help him. After hearing Gil's last question, Jiujiu rolled his eyes helplessly and said, "Yes, Gil. My enemies are 100 people, or even more. However, you don't have to worry about me, I am sure to deal with these enemies." After speaking, Jiujiu said to the Red Queen in his mind. "Queen Red, cover all the cameras under the overpass, I'm going to set up a trap." After hearing this, the Red Queen immediately said excitedly. "Okay, sir. The surveillance will be fully covered in 3 seconds. 3, 2, 1, the monitoring has been successfully covered, sir, you can take action." Hearing this, Jiujiu immediately took action. After placing several traps in hidden locations on several possible attack routes under the overpass, Jiujiu retreated. Gil stood there the whole time and watched Jiujiu's actions, his face looking very ugly. Obviously, he has not yet gotten over the shock of Jiujiu being about to face 100 enemies. The Red Queen had already informed him that the enemy had arrived and was sneaking into a detachment under the overpass, preparing to encircle and kill Jiujiu. Returning to Jill, Jiujiu said to Jill. "Gil, I believe you are willing to help me, but 100 enemies are not that easy to deal with. So, how about you hide first? When I need you, I will notify you. There is no time. The enemy is already here. Hide quickly." After saying that, Jiujiu stretched out his hand, pulled Jill down and hid him behind a concrete pillar. He also hid behind another pillar. At the same time, Jiujiu did not forget to notify Queen Hong to resume surveillance, and controlled the wolves to prepare to launch a raid with him at any time. At this time, both Cain and Ashford were staring at the monitor, nervously waiting for the battle to break out. To be honest, both of them were eager to know how Jiujiu would perform when facing an opponent 100 times his own. Looking at the monitor, Michael directed the personnel divided into 5 teams to surround Jiujiu's position from 3 directions. Cain had an unclear mentality. He was torn whether he expected Jiujiu to defeat these 100 men, or whether he hoped that Michael and the others could capture Jiujiu alive. Worrying about gains and losses, in just 10 seconds, Cain felt as if his days were like years. The next second, something surprising happened to Cain. As the 5 teams advanced, they all unfortunately triggered the traps Jiujiu had laid out in advance. This surprised Cain. He didn't expect that the disc-like weapon could be mined on the ground. It was a bit surprising. Fortunately, the members of these 5 teams did not follow the police's offensive method, lining up one after another and sticking closely together. Instead, they formed a line of skirmishers and surrounded them. As a result, the personnel were too scattered and they did not join forces for a long time. A few traps were eliminated. But it really made Cain feel a lot of pain when he looked at the surveillance screen. Almost at the same time, a dark object was ejected from the front of the 5 teams and hovered in the air for only 3 seconds. No less than 5 people from each of the 5 teams were shot dead by the strange weapon. This scene also shocked Jill, who was hiding behind the stone pillar. To be honest, she also saw the umbrella security personnel surrounding her from 3 directions, and she was extremely nervous. While he was debating whether to take the risk and help Jiujiu fight these 100 people, he saw Jiujiu's method of killing a quarter of the enemies in a moment. Next, he saw another scene that shocked her even more. Almost at the moment when the trap exploded, the wolves controlled by Wolf Warriors 1, 2, and Red Queen also took action. 8 mechanical creatures rushed towards the remaining Umbrella personnel from 4 directions. The Umbrella team members, who were almost collapsed by the sudden appearance of the trap, immediately fell into panic. Several team members on the periphery were killed by the Wolf Warriors and the Wolf Pack with just one contact. The screams woke up the remaining team members, who reacted quickly and immediately started shooting in panic. Unfortunately, the power of the rifle bullets was a little bit lacking. The bullets shot at the War Wolf and the Wolf Pack were all bounced away by the steel body. Only countless sparks were shot on their bodies, but they could not hurt the War Wolf and the Wolf Pack at all. In actual combat, Jiujiu also saw the difference between the pet War Wolf and the Wolf Pack controlled by Red Queen. Perhaps in the eyes of others, the fighting power of the Wolf Pack and the War Wolf is similar, equally swift and fierce. But in fact, the fighting of the War Wolf is more flexible, while the Wolf Pack controlled by Red Queen is a little more rigid. Cain looked at the surveillance screen with a gloomy face, and his fists were pierced by his nails. Seeing Michael and others being killed by 8 mechanical creatures, Cain gave a cold order. Release all the lickers. Hearing this, the deputy beside him trembled suddenly, but did not dare to refute Cain at this time, for fear that Cain would vent his anger on himself. He agreed and turned away to convey the order. In his heart, he was mourning for Michael and others, and felt sad for the few remaining Michael and others, who were ruthlessly abandoned by Cain. Ashford also saw Jiujiu's actual combat ability and wanted Jiujiu to save his daughter. But he was also helpless. When he saw the Umbrella security team coming, he knew that he could only find other people to save his daughter. It was also his good luck. Just like in the original play, he found Alice and Carlos wandering in the city, and asked them to go to rescue his daughter on the pretext of escaping from Raccoon City. Outside the overpass, a heavy truck drove in and quickly opened the container. The 2 drivers immediately fled from here. $116. One wave has not yet subsided, another wave has come. 3 minutes after the container was opened, a loud bang was heard, and a moment later, the sound of glass breaking was heard. Then, 12 lickers, who were much taller, stronger, and more ferocious than the lickers in the hive, jumped out of the container. The gunshots and screams under the overpass immediately attracted the attention of the 12 mutant lickers, who roared together and rushed under the overpass. Jiujiu, who was hiding behind a pillar and watching the War Wolf and the Wolf Pack killing the Umbrella personnel, also received a prompt from the system. Congratulations to the host, triggering Hidden Mission 8. Resist the second wave of pursuit by the Umbrella, kill 0/12 mutant lickers, and reward 12,000 experience. After hearing this prompt, Jiujiu was really surprised. He originally thought that after killing all the lickers in the hive, there would be no more lickers in Raccoon City, but he did not expect that there were still lickers in the Umbrella Company. There was no time to think so much. Jiujiu hurriedly notified the 2 War Wolves and Red Queen with his mind, quickly clearing the remaining Umbrella armed personnel and preparing to meet the attack of the lickers behind. After receiving Jiujiu's order, the 2 War Wolves and the Wolf Pack immediately accelerated the killing speed, not caring that the bullets might hit the joints of the limbs, causing temporary loss of combat ability. Sure enough, as soon as Jiujiu's order was issued, 12 blood-red lickers appeared from the ground and the pillars. The 12 mutant lickers became frantic as soon as they tasted the blood and flesh. They immediately joined in the killing of the umbrella-armed personnel. Some of them pierced their bodies with their long tongues without hesitation, and then rolled their tongues back to their mouths, and began to eat without hesitation. Some simply evaded the bullets, fell on them, pierced their bodies with their claws, and began to eat. The werewolf reacted quickly, and when the lickers killed the umbrella-armed personnel, they took the opportunity to kill the lickers in front of them. Jiujiu did not hesitate, and said to Jill, who was hiding behind him and was already pale with fear, "Hide well, this kind of monster cannot be killed by your pistol." After saying that, Jiujiu had flashed out from behind the pillar, and threw the traps that were taken out from the space one after another in the direction of the crowd and the lickers from a distance. Now Jiujiu has reached 900 kilograms of strength, so throwing a few traps is naturally easy. Less than 100 meters away, the trap made a whirring sound and was thrown into the crowd and the group of lickers. Then, the traps were ejected into the air one after another, and then hovered in the air, bursting out countless arrows and steel balls. All the remaining few umbrella-armed personnel were killed, and several mutant lickers were shot with their exposed heads, falling to the ground and twitching. Of course, the werewolf and the wolf pack were also exposed to arrows and steel balls, but fortunately their bodies were all made of metal. Although they were also pierced into their metal bodies by arrows and steel balls, it did not affect their actions. While calmly shooting arrows and steel balls to disperse the lickers, they chased the remaining lickers. Behind the monitor, Cain's face was already extremely dark, and he regretted it very much, regretting that he released the lickers too early. He really forgot that the lickers could not be controlled like the pursuers, and their brains were too fragile to implant control chips in their brains. This caused them to be unable to accurately kill the target, and when he saw Michael and others being surrounded, he ordered the release of the lickers in a fit of anger. As a result, these lickers joined the mechanical creatures in the killing before they found their target. This gave Jiujiu and the mechanical creatures the opportunity to kill the lickers. In just this short contact, 5 lickers died. The remaining lickers also had no chance to kill Jiujiu, but were chased by the mechanical creatures and fled everywhere. Jiujiu naturally would not let the remaining lickers escape, as that was related to the hidden mission and the experience gained. Jiujiu immediately ordered the werewolf and the wolf pack to chase the lickers in his mind, and he followed them out, without even having time to say hello to Jill. At this moment, all the remaining umbrella-armed personnel also died, and the system sounded. Congratulations to the host, you have completed Hidden Mission 7. Resist the first wave of pursuit by the Umbrella Company, defeat the pursuit of the umbrella-armed personnel, 0/100, and reward 1000 experience points. Before he could check the specific information, Jiujiu met a licker who was chased by the werewolf. The licker suddenly met Jiujiu while running away, and roared in anger, and was about to pounce on Jiujiu. Jiujiu would never give it a chance, and he picked up the mechanical crossbow and shot 3 times in a row. The arrows shot out instantly, and the finished shape blocked the direction of the licker's dodge, shooting towards its exposed brain. The licker was in midair and could not dodge flexibly. He only had time to turn his head to one side, trying to avoid the shooting of 3 arrows. As if Jiujiu knew that these 3 arrows could not kill the licker, he fired 3 arrows in a row just after the 3 arrows were shot out. After 3 bangs, there was another bang, and 4 arrows hit the licker's body one after another, and were bounced off by its hard skin. However, the remaining 2 arrows could no longer be avoided, and the 2 arrows shot into the licker's exposed brain with a series of puffs. The licker lost consciousness immediately after being shot in the brain. Its body flew over Jiujiu's head, hit the ground with a bang, and rolled twice before stopping and twitching on the ground. The 2 werewolves and the wolf pack had killed 4 more lickers, leaving only 3 lickers that had escaped dozens of meters away. The werewolves and the wolf pack immediately chased them out, dividing into 3 groups to surround and kill the 3 lickers. Fortunately, the werewolves and the wolf pack were faster than the lickers, otherwise it would be extremely difficult for Jiujiu to find and kill them after the lickers escaped. At this moment, 3 huge figures came from outside the overpass. Listening to the heavy footsteps, it was obviously the 3 pursuers. And in Jiujiu's mind, the system's prompt sounded. Host triggers Hidden Mission 9. Resist the 3rd wave of pursuit by the Umbrella, kill the pursuer, 0/3, and reward 15,000 experience. Hearing the system's prompt sound, Jiujiu wanted to curse, and he also lamented in his heart. Is it over yet? One wave after another, do you still need to take a break? The most damning thing is, where did the umbrella get 3 pursuers from? It's so fucking outrageous. Before Jiujiu finished complaining, the 3 pursuers had already arrived under the overpass. Hearing the heavy footsteps, Jiujiu couldn't help but look up. The 3 pursuers stood in the shape of a finished product, and the one in the front was a monster with a height of more than 2 meters, a huge physique and a dark face. 117 was beaten by 3 pursuers and fled. Seeing the appearance of this monster, Jiujiu inexplicably felt extremely familiar. Looking at the 2 pursuers behind, it was the same. The strangest one was the pursuer standing on the left. No, this pursuer was also completely black. Although he was not as dark as the pursuer in front, it could be seen that the person in front of this pursuer was also black. And the strangest thing was that the chest of this pursuer was standing high, which looked extremely weird. Before Jiujiu could think about these messes, the 3 pursuers locked their eyes on Jiujiu for a long time without blinking, and seemed to have determined the target. Then, all 3 pursuers raised the Gatling machine guns in their hands. When Jiujiu heard the sound of the Gatling machine gun motor turning, he couldn't help but get goosebumps all over his body. How could he dare to hesitate? He immediately ran sideways to hide behind the cement stone pillar on the side. The next moment, the unique bang 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 sound of the Gatling gun when firing rang out rapidly like thunder. The next second, countless bullets were like hail, shooting at the concrete pillar where Jiujiu was hiding. Without any suspense, the bullets hit the concrete pillar with a diameter of 1 meter. The hard concrete pillar was immediately splashed with countless concrete fragments by the bullets, raising dust all over the sky. It blocked Jill, who was watching the 3 monsters chasing Jiujiu in surprise from a distance, and also blocked the camera's view. Jiujiu hid behind the pillar, and quickly communicated with Red Queen in his mind, calculating when the 3 Gatling machine guns would shoot through the concrete pillar where he was hiding. Fortunately, before the concrete pillar was penetrated, he risked being shot to death and hid behind another concrete pillar. The answer given by Red Queen made Jiujiu very depressed. If 3 Gatling guns fired at the same time, it would only take 3 minutes to shoot through the concrete pillar and tear his body into pieces. In this case, Jiujiu had to find another concrete pillar to hide in when hiding for 2 minutes and 30 seconds, risking exposure, otherwise he would be beaten into pieces by the 3 pursuers. Hiding behind the concrete pillar, Jiujiu asked Red Queen to tell him the time, but in his heart he cursed the umbrella company for being perverted and complained about his bad luck. There was only 1 pursuer in the play, but why did 3 of them come here? He didn't know that because of his intrusion, Cain paid special attention to him and wanted to get his mechanical creatures more urgently. It was because of him that Alice and others fell into the trap, which made Cain make such a choice. In order to prevent the umbrella company's secrets from being leaked, Cain, who was originally going to kill everyone who entered the hive, had the opportunity to create 3 pursuers to hunt him down based on the principle of waste utilization. This can be regarded as a sip and a peck, a cycle of cause and effect. For this, Jiujiu has to thank the 3 Laplanders. If it weren't for their low willpower, he would probably have to face 6 pursuers. In other words, if there were 6 fully armed pursuers, the possibility of Jiujiu defeating them would be almost 0. Even if he had the help of Werewolf and the Wolf Pack, and there were traps that could cause large-scale killing, he could not defeat the 6 pursuers. Don't think that Jiujiu is invincible just because he has 9 times the physical fitness of an ordinary person. No matter how powerful he is, he can't get out of the realm of the mortal body. If a bullet hits him, it will still be a hole, and he will still die. At most, his ability to resist blows and recovery ability are much stronger than ordinary people. But he is far less invincible than the Hulk in Marvel, who is not as good as swords and guns. It takes more than 2 minutes, and there is no need to describe how fast it went. Jiujiu, who was hiding behind the pillar with his head in his arms, dared not hesitate when he heard the prompt from the Red Queen. He gritted his teeth and cursed. Damn, life or death depends on this. The next moment, just as Jiujiu was about to rush out of the concrete pillar, the system prompt sounded again. Congratulations to the host, you have completed the hidden task 8. Resist the second wave of pursuit by the umbrella, kill 12/12 mutant lickers, and reward 12,000 experience. Tip, the host's level has been upgraded, and the current level is 15. Strength and physical strength are increased by 5 each, intelligence, spirit, and agility are increased by 1 each, and have been automatically assigned to the attribute panel. Please check the details by yourself. The sudden increase in attributes made Jiujiu secretly happy. Compared with the speed of 24 meters per second before the upgrade, Jiujiu was not fully sure that he could successfully hide behind the concrete pillar under the blockade of 3 Gatling machine guns. But the death of 25 meters in a second gave him absolute confidence. Don't underestimate the growth rate of this meter. In actual operation, it is very different. Let's put it this way. Even for the modified pursuers, their eyes have a limited speed to capture images. If their maximum capture speed is 24 meters per second, then the extra meter of Jiujiu at this time will make the eyes of the 3 pursuers unable to catch Jiujiu's figure. In other words, if Jiujiu rushes out now to avoid their shooting angles, the 3 pursuers will not be able to keep up with Jiujiu's speed. In this way, Jiujiu can perfectly avoid the pursuit of bullets. Sure enough, just as Jiujiu thought, when Jiujiu rushed out of the concrete pillar that was about to be shot through and ran to another concrete pillar. Although the 3 pursuers clearly saw Jiujiu, they had no time to adjust the angle of the gun barrel and catch up with Jiujiu. When the 3 pursuers finally locked onto Jiujiu had already hidden behind a concrete pillar again. The 3 pursuers had no choice but to continue shooting at the concrete pillar where Jiujiu was hiding with their machine guns. Unfortunately, even so, they could not kill Jiujiu, because they only had 1 ammunition box and 5,000 rounds of ammunition. How long would the Gatling gun last? At the maximum rate of fire of 1,000 rounds per minute, 5,000 rounds of ammunition would only be enough for them to shoot continuously for 5 minutes, which means that the amount of bullets they carried could not penetrate the second concrete pillar where Jiujiu was hiding. In fact, it was true. Just when the second concrete pillar became precarious, after a burst of woohoo turning sounds, the 3 Gatling machine guns stopped firing. After knowing that the 3 Gatling bullets had been fired, without waiting for the dust to clear, Jiujiu shook his hand and threw a trap that flew almost 100 meters and landed in the middle of the 3 pursuers. The next moment, the trap was ejected into the air, shooting dense arrows and steel balls, shooting at the heads of the 3 pursuers. Unfortunately, the 3 pursuers were different from ordinary zombies, and they were not as easy to kill as the lickers with their brains exposed. Just when the trap exploded, the 3 pursuers made the same move. $118 first battle damage. That is to raise both hands, and the arms that are too strong to be true embrace their entire heads. When the arrows and steel balls shot into their arms and bodies, although there were dense puff sounds, it was not enough to cause fatal damage to the pursuers. At most, they only shot through the skin and muscles on the surface of their bodies, and it was difficult to advance any further. And according to the tenacity of the zombies' vitality, if their brains are not destroyed, even if their bodies are cut into several pieces, they still cannot be killed. Seeing this scene, Jiujiu couldn't help but curse a pervert. Fortunately, the werewolf and the wolf pack had killed the fleeing licker and returned to the overpass. After receiving the notice from the Red Queen, Jiujiu issued an order to surround and kill the pursuers without hesitation. When the werewolf and the wolf pack rushed to the underpass, they found 3 pursuers standing in the middle. The next moment, all 8 mechanical dogs rushed towards the 3 pursuers. The pursuers also reacted quickly, dropping their empty machine guns and taking out rocket launchers from their backs. Just as the 8 mechanical dogs were about to rush forward, 3 pursuers picked up rocket launchers with loaded shells and aimed at the 8 mechanical dogs that were besieging them in 3 directions. Jiujiu hurriedly communicated with Werewolf number 1 and number 2 with his mind to dodge, and as for the wolf pack, he could only hope that Red Queen could control them to dodge well. Facts have proved that mechanical dogs with souls are more flexible than mechanical dogs controlled by Red Queen. This is not. Under 3 rockets, 2 werewolves avoided the explosion of the rockets unscathed. However, 3 mechanical dogs controlled by Red Queen were hit by rockets, and although the mechanical dogs hit by rockets did not become a pile of scrap metal, they were not much different. Because their relatively weak limbs were blown off by rockets, they could only lie on the ground and lost the ability to continue fighting. Jiujiu didn't feel bad about the loss of the wolf pack. As early as when he made them, Jiujiu had made plans. To put it bluntly, these wolf packs are just cannon fodder on the battlefield. If they are gone, they can be remade. The next moment, taking advantage of the opportunity of the 3 pursuers to reload, the remaining 5 mechanical dogs all rushed up. Biting, clawing, and stabbing, they immediately entangled the three pursuers. The three pursuers instinctively dropped the rocket launchers in their hands and started a close-range melee with the 5 mechanical dogs. Jiujiu saw that he couldn't take down the 3 pursuers under the siege of the 5 mechanical dogs, and he knew that he couldn't go on like this. After all, the mechanical dogs need energy to drive. If he can't kill the 3 pursuers before the energy is exhausted, he will only have to flee. This is a result that Jiujiu doesn't want to see. You know, he came to this world to complete the mission, otherwise what is he doing? If you want to go on vacation, you won't go to the Marvel world, right? After thinking about it, Jiujiu thought of a way to deal with it. He gave orders to Red Queen to control 3 mechanical dogs to contain the pursuers, while the War Wolf cruised around and shot the pursuers' heads with energy bullets as long as he found an opportunity. He didn't believe that the energy bullets, which were more powerful than rifle bullets, could still jump around after blowing up their heads. Even if one bullet didn't work, then he would have a few more or even more. Anyway, there were 2,000 rounds of ammunition, and Jiujiu didn't believe that they couldn't be killed. Just after Jiujiu changed his tactics, Cain also understood the advantages and disadvantages of the pursuers and mechanical creatures through the surveillance screen. Let's not talk about the pursuers. The advantage is high defense and surprisingly strong strength, but the disadvantage is that the flexibility is not satisfactory. However, based on the ability of the pursuers, it is still remarkable. And the weakness of those mechanical creatures is actually their limbs. Who would have thought of this? Such creatures with steel all over their bodies should be invulnerable to swords and guns, right? Who would have thought that their limbs are so fragile? Based on this characteristic, Cain is no longer afraid of Jiujiu's War Wolf. He even thought of several ways to deal with Jiujiu in just a few minutes. However, he will have to wait until Jiujiu can kill 3 pursuers before he can arrange corresponding tactics against Jiujiu to capture Jiujiu alive. His idea is good. If Jiujiu really has no other means, he may really be calculated by Cain. Don't forget that Jiujiu has Red Queen to help him. In addition, Jiujiu has never used the mechanical flies that have been in space. In other words, as long as Jiujiu is careful in every step of his future actions. Even after contacting Dr. Ashford, let Red Queen take over the entire Raccoon City camera, Cain will become blind, and no matter what traps he sets, Jiujiu will see through it one step ahead. In this way, does Cain have a chance of winning against Jiujiu? Without the lickers and pursuers, how could the few men under his command be a match for Jiujiu? Of course, these are things that will happen later. The most important thing at the moment is how to kill these 3 difficult pursuers. Sure enough, Jiujiu's arrangement worked, and only the 3 pursuers who were left with fighting instincts were left, and they immediately fell into a passive position. They also had to guard against the attacks of the 3 wolves, but in fact, it was mainly the mechanical dog's elusive tail sting. Because they instinctively felt that if the sharp tail spines penetrated their brains and stirred again, their brains would probably be destroyed immediately and die on the spot. In addition, you must always pay attention to the 2 war wolves that are constantly wandering in the outer circle. Their energy bullets are also a threat to them. Earlier, they had been hit directly in the cheek because they underestimated the energy bullets sprayed from the mouth of the warrior wolf. And their cheeks, which were like rubber, couldn't stop the penetration and corrosion of energy bullets, and actually corroded a big hole in their cheeks. This made their remaining consciousness know that if several bullets like this were shot into the brain in succession, they would most likely die on the spot. In this way, although the 3 pursuers were restrained in fighting, they became more and more stable, which made Jiujiu secretly anxious. No reason, because after such a long battle between the wolf warriors and the wolves, it was obvious that there was not much energy left in the body, which made Jiujiu want to get Tony's small energy reactor more and more. With this energy source with super long-lasting energy, he can enable the wolf warriors to fight for a longer period of time, and can also create more wolves to strengthen their combat effectiveness. Seeing that the battle was in a stalemate, Jiujiu couldn't care less. At this time, he had to get off the field and join the battle in person. $119 Chaser, Destroyer. So, the tactics changed immediately. Jiujiu drew out the dog-leg double knives on the side of his thigh and rushed into the battlefield without hesitation. At the same time, he communicated with War Wolf and Red Queen in his mind, and he and the 2 War Wolves restrained the 3 pursuers, while the remaining 3 wolf packs assisted outside and killed the 3 pursuers with energy bullets. The reason for doing this is that Werewolf and he are in tune with each other. As long as a thought, Werewolf will change tactics so that he can better cooperate with him in battle. On the other hand, the wolf pack can't do it. Although it is controlled by Red Queen, after all, the order must be issued through Red Queen, so that it will definitely lose the fleeting opportunity. Sure enough, with the addition of Jiujiu, the three pursuers immediately felt the danger. It should be said that the cooperation between Werewolf and Jiujiu is very tacit. Jiujiu waved the double knives, circled quickly around a pursuer, and chopped a knife from time to time, and the target was always his head. When the two werewolves were fighting with the other two pursuers, they did not forget to use their tail thorns to help Jiujiu to contain the pursuers. In addition, the wolf pack controlled by the Red Queen occasionally fired energy bullets, which immediately made the pursuers entangled by Jiujiu flustered. The pursuer fighting against Jiujiu was Matt, who was relatively weak in the original play. His combat experience was definitely not as good as James and Ryan. Although Ryan was a woman, she could really easily and happily deal with Matt. Seeing Matt getting flustered, while the wolf pack fired 2 energy bullets and Matt raised his hand to resist, Jiujiu and a werewolf suddenly joined together, and one person and one mechanical dog launched an attack at the same time. The werewolf rose up, and its mouth and claws all attacked Matt's head, and the tail thorn also swung over, but the target was Matt's bloated and deformed eyes that were almost invisible. Matt had just raised his hand to block the energy bullet when he saw the attack of the werewolf coming. He instinctively raised his hand to block it. This blocked the mouth and claws of the werewolf, but his arm was bitten tightly by the mouth of the werewolf. The tail thorn also pierced his other hand and was blocked, but his head was completely exposed to Jiujiu. What else is there to say? Jiujiu jumped 2 meters high silently, and chopped down with both knives. Until the 2 knives were about to fall on Matt's head, Jiujiu shouted loudly in his throat. With a loud shout of "ah," the 2 knives chopped on Matt's forehead, and then it was like chopping on a big tree. Although there was a slight obstruction, it still chopped Matt's head and cut his head into 3 pieces. This has to say that Jiujiu's power is really too strong, just think about it. Jiujiu's own strength attribute of 9 means he can easily exert 900 kilograms of strength, plus the doubling when he explodes. That means if Jiujiu strikes with all his strength, he can exert at least 1,800 kilograms of strength. With such a huge force, not to mention the pursuer's head, even a complete tree can be split in half by Jiujiu's sword. If one pursuer dies, the remaining 2 will be easier to deal with. With the joint efforts of Jiujiu and the 5 mechanical dogs, the remaining 2 pursuers also died under Jiujiu's double swords one after another. Just after killing 3 pursuers, the system voice sounded. Congratulations to the host, complete hidden mission 9. Resist the 3rd wave of pursuit by the umbrella, kill the pursuers, 3/3, and reward 15,000 experience. Tip: the host's level has been upgraded, and the current level is 16. Strength and physical strength are increased by 5 each, intelligence, spirit, and agility are increased by 1 each, and have been automatically assigned to the attribute panel. Please check the details by the host yourself. The strength and physical strength attributes reached 10 points, which gave Jiujiu the most obvious feeling. His body, which had just been exhausted from fighting with 3 pursuers, was suddenly wrapped in a warm current. He felt indescribably comfortable all over, as if his whole body was immersed in a hot spring, and he almost moaned with comfort. The warm current lasted for a minute before gradually disappearing. Jiujiu couldn't help but tighten the handle of the knife in his hand, feeling the surging power, and wanted to shout to the umbrella people, who else? Until the battle was over, Jill came out from behind the concrete pillar with a lingering fear on his face. He looked at Jiujiu with a complicated expression and said uncertainly, "Who are you?" "Yi. How can there be so many magical robot dogs and such abnormal strength?" Hearing this, Jiujiu shrugged and said, "I told you. I am an employee of S.H.I.E.L.D. It is normal to have these magical abilities, isn't it? Don't say it, let's leave here quickly." After that, Jiujiu walked to the 3 wolves whose limbs were blown off, put them and the traps scattered on the ground into the mechanical space, and repaired them when he was free. What Jiujiu didn't know was that on the overpass, a gorgeous Asian beauty with short hair and wearing a bright red short-shouldered Cheongsam saw the whole process of his battle with the 3 pursuers. This beauty was none other than Ada Wong, who was sent by Weskier to Raccoon City to check the situation. At this time, Ada Wong looked at Yi Jiujiu under the overpass and collected the mechanical dog. One can imagine the complexity in her heart. Her family was actually one of the founders of Umbrella, but because of the villain Isaac, both her parents died inexplicably, and she was trained by the company to become an agent because of her young age. Over the years, she hated the Umbrella Company no less than others. It was only because of her own lack of strength that she hid beside Weskier and worked for Weskier. It can be said that she was thinking all the time, destroying the Umbrella and killing Isaac with her own hands. And now she finally saw hope, that is Yi Jiujiu. Because she saw many possibilities from Yi Jiujiu. Not to mention other things, even the mechanical dog is not something that Umbrella can easily deal with. If there are hundreds of such creatures, she believes that it is a very simple thing to destroy the Umbrella and kill Isaac, and avenge her parents. Of course, she is not an impulsive person, and what to do depends on Yi Jiujiu's performance later. Seeing Yi Jiujiu clean up the battlefield, ride on the strange motorcycle, and take the police beauty away, King Ada also issued an order to follow Yi Jiujiu. Sitting on the back of the motorcycle, Jill hugged Yi Jiujiu's waist with both hands, but his heart was full of thoughts like a raging sea. The remaining mechanical creatures ran around the motorcycle and guarded the motorcycle. Of course he didn't know that Yi Jiujiu had just restored the energy of the 5 mechanical dogs, otherwise they would not be able to run with the motorcycle. She saw with her own eyes that the mechanical dogs that Yi Jiujiu had blown up disappeared like magic, and the 3 Gatling guns, bazooka launchers and several rockets brought by the 3 monsters were also gone. She felt like she had seen a ghost. $120 meetup with Alice and others. It's hard to say what Yi Jiujiu was thinking. It is reasonable to take a damaged robot dog, but what is the point of taking an empty Gatling gun and a rocket launcher? Could it be? Google search reading. Is this person who claims to be from S.H.I.E.L.D. so poor? Ashford watched Yi Jiujiu leave, and he couldn't wait to contact Yi Jiujiu and ask him to help him rescue his daughter Angela. Ashford, who was anxious, finally got the chance. Yi Jiujiu happened to stop in front of a public telephone booth. Ashford couldn't hold back and immediately called the public phone with his computer. In fact, Yi Jiujiu deliberately stopped here. He wanted Jill to take him to the school to find Angela, but he really didn't know that Angela was hiding in that school. Besides, if he didn't let Ashford contact him, how could he let Ashford go with him in the end? At this time, Cain already knew that Ashford was contacting other survivors and Yi Jiujiu to rescue his daughter. The reason why he didn't touch Ashford was that he hoped that Ashford could contact Yi Jiujiu, so that he could use Ashford to set a trap for Yi Jiujiu and capture Yi Jiujiu. As soon as the phone rang, Yi Jiujiu walked into the phone booth and answered the phone. Hello. Do you want to leave Raccoon City safely? What do you mean? I have some bad news for you. If the zombie disaster in the city cannot be eliminated, the Umbrella Company will launch black eggs and destroy the entire city. And if you want to leave this city, you have to help me do something. Otherwise, I won't tell you how to leave Raccoon City. How about it? Are you willing to accept this deal? Oh. Since you said so, what else can I do except choose to help you? Sir. My name is Yi Jiujiu, I am Chinese, you can call me Yi. Then, who are you? Oh, hello, Yi. I am a senior engineer of Umbrella, my name is Ashford. What I need you to do is to help me rescue my daughter, she is hiding in the 8th middle school. In addition, before I contacted you, I have found several survivors with good strength to help me rescue my daughter. I hope you can work together. After rescuing my daughter, I will contact you and tell you how to escape from Raccoon City. So, hurry up, Yi. You don't have much time left. As far as I know, Umbrella will launch the black egg in 3 hours, that is, before dark. Wish you and me good luck. Yi. After saying that, Ashford hung up the phone. Sitting in a wheelchair, he couldn't help but let out a heavy breath. After reaching out to support his eyes, he murmured to himself. Yi. I hope you can rescue my daughter as soon as possible. May God bless us both. Yi Jiujiu hung up the phone, walked back to the motorcycle, and said to Jill, who was in a daze. Let's go. If we want to leave Raccoon City, we must first help someone save a little girl. Next, you show the way. We have to get to the 8th middle school as soon as possible. After saying that, Yi Jiujiu started the motorcycle and asked Jill, who had just come to her senses, to show the way. However, a doubt arose in his heart. Why, after receiving Ashford's request for help, why didn't the system issue a hidden task to him? In fact, because of his delay under the overpass, Alice, Cross and others had successfully rescued Angela. Diamond suit, diamond suit, diamond suit. After he talked to Ashford, he was discovered by Ashford and contacted. At this time, he was looking for a vehicle to escort Angela to the agreed location. Naturally, without Jiujiu, one of Cross's companions and the female reporter died among them. Unlike the plot, Jill's partner Peyton survived. Because the Umbrella took measures early, Peyton did not wait at the exit of the city, so he escaped the end of being bitten by zombies and survived. At this time, the three people took Angela, the Black Lucky Man LJ, and more than a dozen other members they met on the road. So many people gathered together, which was also a considerable force. Because of Peyton as the middleman, the two sides did not have any unpleasant conflicts. And after discussion, they prepared to act together, find Dr. Ashford, and escape from Raccoon City together. Because of this, Jiujiu did not trigger the task of rescuing Angela. It was a coincidence that the two sides were walking in opposite directions, and with the cameras in the city monitored by Red Queen, they naturally knew the route of Alice and others. 10 minutes later, the two sides met on a street. Jiujiu stopped his motorcycle on the side of the road to avoid misunderstandings. He and Jill came to the middle of the road and waited for Alice and others to arrive. Not long after, 3 or 2 cars drove on the road, including an off-road vehicle, a pickup truck and a bus. When the 3 cars saw Jiujiu and Jill standing in the middle of the road, they immediately stopped the car, and Alice, Peyton, and Carlos got off the car. There was no other reason. In addition to Carlos, Alice and Peyton knew Jiujiu and Jill respectively. To be honest, Alice was very excited to meet Jiujiu here. After all, they were comrades who had fought side by side in the hive. She had been in a coma since she was caught by the Umbrella. As soon as she woke up from her coma, the disaster had already happened. She was eager to see her comrades who had come out of the hive, but unfortunately she had searched almost the entire Raccoon City and couldn't find James and others. Seeing Jiujiu at this time, Alice could no longer suppress her excitement and hurriedly shouted to Jiujiu. "That's great, Yi. I'm so happy to see you. Can you tell me how you got here? Did you see James and others?" On the other side, Peyton also rushed to Jill and gave Jill a big hug and said, "Thank God, Jill, you're still alive, that's great. Oh, I forgot to tell you, our former teammates are also alive, on the bus behind, they also miss you, Jill." Seeing Alice so excited, Jiujiu not wanting to waste time, he immediately replied. "After you left, I was collecting evidence of Umbrella's crimes in the hive. When I came out, I couldn't find you. Then the disaster broke out. I'm sorry, Alice." After a pause, Jiujiu continued. "Let's not talk about this for now. I think you are also commissioned by Dr. Ashford to save his daughter Angela. Time is running out, let's take Angela to the agreed place first." After listening to Jiujiu's words, the team members who poked their heads out of the bus to whistle and cheer, including Alice, Jill, Peyton, and others, all calmed down. $121 Cain and #039, ambush. Alice also told Jiujiu the meeting place she had agreed with Ashford. They immediately returned to their cars, with Jiujiu riding a motorcycle in front to lead the way. The 3 cars behind followed Jiujiu all the way to the municipal building. On the way, Jiujiu asked Red Queen to take over all the cameras in the city from now on, ready to make everyone disappear in the cameras at any time. This was not enough. Jiujiu released the mechanical flies that had never been used from the space as an aerial reconnaissance force. It was not that Jiujiu knew Cain's arrangement against him in advance, but Cain discovered Ashford's tricks in the play and set up an ambush in the municipal building to catch Alice. Therefore, Jiujiu asked Red Queen to take over the cameras in advance and sent out mechanical flies to investigate the surrounding environment. Not to mention, it is convenient to have Red Queen now. Red Queen can not only control the city's cameras, but also take over satellites floating in outer space when necessary, not to mention the mechanical flies released by Jiujiu. Red Queen can control the mechanical fly and transmit the captured images to Jiujiu, and remind Jiujiu of places she thinks are suspicious or dangerous. Because of Jiujiu's advanced preparation, they successfully avoided the activities of a large group of zombies and quickly approached the municipal building. At this time, Jiujiu asked Red Queen to cut off the surveillance, so that Umbrella could only see the repeated images before. Diamond suit, diamond suit, diamond suit, diamond suit. Then, the mechanical fly also sent back the surveillance images. The entire municipal building was deployed with layers of Umbrella's armed personnel, which made Jiujiu very confused. Obviously, he had killed Umbrella's 100 security forces, so where did Cain find so many Umbrella security personnel? In fact, the 100 security personnel killed by Jiujiu were indeed two-thirds of Umbrella's armed forces in Raccoon City. The reason why there are so many security personnel in the municipal building is that Cain urgently mobilized the branch security personnel from the neighboring city after knowing that Ashford and Jiujiu had contacted. After discovering this situation, the system prompt sounded. Congratulations to the host for triggering Hidden Mission 10. Smash the ambush arranged by Cain, ensure that at least half of the personnel survive, and the main characters Alice, Carlos, Jill, Ashford, and Angela survive, and you can get 20,000 experience rewards. Note, for each main character who dies, the experience is reduced by 1,000. After hearing the system prompt, Jiujiu didn't want to think about where Cain got so many security personnel. What Jiujiu has to do now is to gather everyone together and arrange targeted tactical arrangements. After thinking it through, Jiujiu immediately found a safe place not far from the municipal building through Red Queen and stopped. After getting off the motorcycle, he called Alice, Jill, Carlos and the captain to get off the car and said, "Guys, I think we are in trouble." As he said that, Jiujiu pointed to the dark municipal building not far away and said, "My drone detected that Umbrella has set up an ambush in the municipal building, with about 130 people. I don't think they are here to welcome us out of Raccoon City." After a pause, Jiujiu glanced at the people who had a serious look on their faces after hearing this, and continued. "There are 18 of us in total, and only 16 of us have combat effectiveness. 16 against 130, this will be a very difficult battle, tell me. Do you have any good suggestions?" After hearing this, everyone fell silent, but no one questioned why Jiujiu knew that there were more than 100 people ambushing in the municipal building. This is because, on the way here, after Alice and Jill's narration, everyone knew how amazing Jiujiu was. If he said there was an ambush ahead, he would definitely not deceive everyone. It's just that everyone is unsure and doesn't know how to make suggestions to win this battle with a huge disparity in power. In fact, not only Jiujiu is worried, but Cain is also very irritable. Because just a moment ago, the figures of Jiujiu and others disappeared in the surveillance. No matter how the operators mobilized the cameras in the city, they could not find the traces of Jiujiu and others. This feeling of being out of control made Cain very uncomfortable. He always felt that Jiujiu and others disappeared in the surveillance because of the mysterious men. But why did he do this? He could only guess a rough idea, that is. The other party may have known that he was monitoring them through surveillance. Doing so would make his side blind and not know their subsequent actions. But Cain is Cain. As the leader of the Umbrella in Raccoon City, he quickly calmed down and had a plan in his mind, that is. No matter what Jiujiu and others do, if they want to escape from Raccoon City, they will eventually come to the municipal building to meet Ashford. As long as he controls Ashford, he will not worry about them not coming to him. Then, the ambush he set up in the municipal building will definitely work. Even if the security force of more than 100 people can't take them down, he has a backup plan to deal with them. In fact, his biggest trump card is that he has already planted enough bombs in the entire municipal building, and the remote control is in his hand. He doesn't believe that Jiujiu is not afraid of death. As long as Jiujiu can be forced to hand over the technology for making mechanical creatures, even if everyone here dies, he can still maintain a high-level position in the Umbrella. On Jiujiu's side, after everyone was silent for a long time, it was Alice who spoke. We have never fought a battle with such a disparity in strength. It's up to you to arrange what to do. Let me express my position first, I will completely obey your command." Hearing that Alice, the strongest member of the team, took the lead to express her position, the captain and Carlos followed closely, nodding to express their absolute obedience to Jiujiu's arrangements. Jill naturally believed in Jiujiu, after all, she had seen it with her own eyes not long ago. How Jiujiu single-handedly eliminated a 100-man team of Protective Umbrella, and even the 12 terrifying crawling monsters, and the 3 big guys who could use weapons. Seeing that no one had any objections, Jiujiu did not delay and said directly, "Wait a minute, I'll let the drone continue to detect the situation in the building, and then make specific arrangements." While he was talking, the mechanical fly had already flown into the municipal building under the control of the Red Queen, and was conducting careful investigation floor by floor. While transmitting the footage shot by the mechanical fly into Jiujiu's mind through the system, Queen Hong explained to Jiujiu the location of the ambush layout of the Protective Umbrella, the range of firepower coverage, and where to break through their ambush. While listening to the Red Queen's story, Jiujiu was also thankful in his heart that he snatched the Red Queen out. 122 Raid on the municipal building. To be honest, the Red Queen was of great help to him. You know, Jiujiu was an otaku before he traveled through time. Let him use his current strength to carry out assassinations and sneak attacks, which is okay. Just like he destroyed the Salvation Army in the world of The Walking Dead, Jiujiu secretly defeated them. But Umbrella's security force is not an ordinary ragtag group. It is not an exaggeration to say that it is an army. Search TWKAN on Google. Apart from that, how can he fight any wars? What's more, the other party had better set up an ambush early, waiting for him to fall into his own trap. Without the Red Queen, he would have no choice but to kill indiscriminately. The Red Queen was very capable. Through the detection of the mechanical fly, all of Cain's arrangements were incorporated into the system for calculation, and Jiujiu's response plan was quickly given. In fact, the plan is very simple. In a battle with such a disparity in power, sending a mechanical dog to sneak attack is naturally the most correct way. As for Jiujiu and others, all they have to do is follow behind and beat up the drowned dog to take advantage. Even though Jiujiu now has only 5 mechanical dogs around him, his strength is steadily stronger than the Protective Umbrella. Who said that the mechanical dogs are made of steel and are invulnerable? Of course, all of this must be based on the Umbrella side, which does not know the weaknesses of the mechanical dog. How did Jiujiu and the Red Queen know that Cain had already known about the weakness of the mechanical dog? Now that the Red Queen had already given suggestions on how to fight the battle, Jiujiu did not hesitate and said to Alice and others beside him, "There are too many enemies in the municipal building, and I plan to let my mechanical dog go in and launch a surprise attack." We then rushed in and took advantage of the chaos to kill those who were protecting the Umbrella. Finally, he rushed to the top of the building, found Dr. Ashford, grabbed the Umbrella's helicopter and left here. What do you think of this plan? Hearing this, Alice and others looked at each other. They all had no objections and could not offer any constructive suggestions, so they agreed to Jiujiu's plan. In fact, this is not because the attack plan formulated by the Red Queen is too simple, but also because the mechanical dog's combat effectiveness is too strong. The battle itself is as simple as possible. Why bother doing so much trouble when you can easily defeat the enemy? Next, everyone was ready to fight, and Jiujiu also sent out all the mechanical dogs. Naturally, after Jiujiu gave instructions, the 2 werewolves were allowed to fight freely, and the remaining 3 wolves were naturally controlled by the Red Queen. Under the eager gaze of everyone, the figures of the 5 mechanical dogs quickly disappeared into the shadow of the building. Jiujiu and others also quietly reached outside the gate of the municipal building, waiting for the mechanical dog to launch a surprise attack. Jiujiu led his people to rush in and kill the disorderly Umbrella security personnel. In Jiujiu's mind, the Red Queen played the battle process of the 5 mechanical dogs for Jiujiu in time. I saw 5 mechanical dogs breaking in through the surrounding glass windows of the municipal building almost at the same time. Amidst the sound of crash, the Umbrella security personnel had not yet reacted. 5 black shadows rushed into the municipal building. As soon as the 5 mechanical dogs landed on the ground, they opened their mouths and sprayed out dense energy bullets to kill the Umbrella personnel, while rushing quickly into the crowd. Their speed is 200 km per hour, which is 333 meters per second, almost reaching the terrifying speed of sound. It can be said that the Umbrella security personnel only vaguely saw a black shadow flashing in front of their eyes, and the next second the black shadow rushed into the crowd and killed them randomly. The result was that some people in the crowd kept screaming, followed by click-click-click gunshots. Unfortunately, with their reaction speed, they couldn't shoot 5 mechanical dogs that were as fast as ghosts. However, a few people shot bullets into their companions, causing an unlucky incident in which one of their own was killed. Seeing the chaotic situation on the first floor of the municipal building in his mind, Jiujiu also took the lead and rushed into the municipal building. Behind him, Alice and others gritted their teeth and rushed in. The next moment, Alice and others who rushed into the municipal building finally saw clearly the chaotic and almost one-sided massacre inside. Jiujiu was not surprised by the mechanical dog's combat effectiveness. Without any hesitation or softness, Jiujiu immediately picked up the mechanical crossbow and started shooting. All the Umbrella security personnel within 150 meters were killed by him with ruthless headshots. Alice and others are also considered to be experienced in combat. After a brief shock, they immediately picked up their guns and joined the battle. For a time, gunshots and screams were heard in the lobby on the first floor of the municipal building. On the top floor of the building, Cain stood in front of a computer screen in a tent, his face terrifyingly gloomy. When the gunfire rang out, Cain knew something was wrong, and anxiously asked the computer operator loudly, "What happened? Even if you can't see the situation outside, why can't you see the situation inside the municipal building? What do you do for food?" The person operating the computer was a beautiful blonde. She looked very embarrassed when she heard this and said, "Sir, I can't find any problem with the computer. As for not being able to see the screen, I think." Upon hearing this, Cain suddenly became furious and asked angrily, "What do you think? Say it quickly." When the blonde beauty heard this, her body trembled, but she did not dare to delay in replying. "I think all the cameras here are controlled by someone. Our opponent is a very powerful hacker." Cain was stunned when he heard this. He never expected such a result. To be honest, since the company developed the intelligent Red Queen, they have never suffered any hacker attacks. There is no hacker in this world who is the opponent of Red Queen. In fact, judging from the strength shown by Red Queen in the movie, she has vaguely surpassed Tony's intelligent life Jarvis. In fact, it cannot be said that Red Queen is really more advanced than Jarvis, but they have different focuses. Jarvis is said to be an intelligent life, but it is more appropriate to say that he is Tony's assistant. After all, Jarvis's function is more to assist Tony in research and development. As for hacking into other people's computers and assisting Tony in fighting, they are just two functions. Red Queen is different. Red Queen's functions are more comprehensive, especially biochemical research and auxiliary combat capabilities far exceed Jarvis. This can be seen from the sixth movie, when Isaac used Red Queen to fight Alice and suppressed Alice one-sidedly. Cain's mood at this moment was completely screwed, and he thought it was very funny. Unexpectedly, all the arrangements were destroyed by a hacker. Until then, he had not thought that Red Queen would be conquered by Jiujiu's system and become Jiujiu's most important assistant. From this, it can be seen that Cain is really not a person who can fight. 122 Raid on the municipal building. To be honest, Red Queen has helped him a lot. You know, Jiujiu was a homeboy before he traveled through time. With his current strength, he can do assassinations and sneak attacks, which is fine. Just like the saviors were destroyed in the world of The Walking Dead, Jiujiu secretly dealt with them. But the security force of Umbrella is not an ordinary mob. It is not an exaggeration to say that he is an army. Besides, how can he fight any war? I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network. What's more, the other party had ambushed him early and waited for him to fall into the trap. Without Red Queen, he could only kill alone. Red Queen is very powerful. Through the reconnaissance of mechanical flies, all of Cain's arrangements were included in the system calculation, and soon gave Jiujiu a plan to deal with it. In fact, the plan is very simple. For a battle with such a huge disparity in power, the most correct way is to send out the mechanical dogs for a sneak attack. And Jiujiu and others just need to follow behind and beat the drowning dog to take advantage. Although Jiujiu now has only 5 mechanical dogs around him, his strength is definitely stronger than that of the Umbrella Party. Who said that the mechanical dogs are made of steel and are invulnerable to swords and guns? Of course, all this is based on the Umbrella Party not knowing the weaknesses of the mechanical dogs. How could Jiujiu and Red Queen know that Cain already knew about the weaknesses of the mechanical dogs? Since Red Queen had already given suggestions on how to fight, Jiujiu did not hesitate and said to Alice and others around him, "There are too many enemies in the municipal building. I plan to let my mechanical dog go in and launch a surprise attack. We will then rush in and kill those umbrella people in the chaos. Finally, we will rush to the top of the building, find Dr. Ashford, rob Umbrella's helicopter and leave here. What do you think of this plan? Hearing this, Alice and others looked at each other, and none of them had any opinions or constructive suggestions, so they agreed to Jiujiu's plan. In fact, it was not that the attack plan formulated by Red Queen was too simple, but that the combat effectiveness of the mechanical dog was too strong. The battle itself is as simple as possible. Why do so many tricks if you can easily defeat the enemy? Next, everyone was ready for the battle, and Jiujiu also sent all the mechanical dogs out. Naturally, after Jiujiu explained, the 2 werewolves were allowed to fight freely, and the remaining 3 wolf packs were naturally controlled by Red Queen. Under the eager gaze of the crowd, the figures of the 5 mechanical dogs swiftly and lightly disappeared into the shadow of the building. Jiujiu and others also quietly touched the gate of the municipal building, waiting for the mechanical dogs to launch a surprise attack, and then Jiujiu led people to rush in to kill those chaotic umbrella security personnel. In Jiujiu's mind, Red Queen played the battle process of the 5 mechanical dogs for Jiujiu in a timely manner. I saw that the 5 mechanical dogs almost broke through the glass windows around the municipal building at the same time. With a crash, those umbrella security personnel had not yet reacted. 5 black shadows rushed into the municipal building. As soon as the 5 mechanical dogs landed, they opened their mouths and sprayed dense energy bullets to kill the umbrella personnel, while rushing into the crowd at a rapid speed. How fast are they? 200 kilometers per hour, which is 333 meters per second, almost reaching the terrifying speed of sound. It can be said that the umbrella security personnel only vaguely saw a black shadow flash before their eyes, and the next second the black shadow rushed into the crowd and killed people. The result was that people in the crowd kept screaming, followed by the sound of da-da-da. Unfortunately, with their reaction speed, how could they shoot 5 mechanical dogs that were as fast as ghosts? There were a few people who shot their companions with bullets, causing a mistake in which their own people killed their own people. Seeing the chaotic situation on the first floor of the municipal building in his mind, Jiujiu also took the lead and rushed into the municipal building. Behind him, Alice and others also rushed in with gritted teeth. The next moment, Alice and others who rushed into the municipal building finally saw the chaotic and almost one-sided massacre inside. Jiujiu was not surprised by the combat effectiveness of the mechanical dog. Without any hesitation or mercy, Jiujiu immediately picked up the mechanical crossbow and shot. All the umbrella security personnel within 150 meters were ruthlessly shot in the head by him. Alice and the others were also experienced fighters. After a brief shock, they immediately picked up their guns and joined the battle. For a while, the hall on the first floor of the municipal building was filled with gunshots and screams. On the top floor of the building, Cain stood in front of a computer screen in a tent, his face terribly gloomy. When the gunshots rang out, Cain knew something was wrong, and anxiously asked the computer operator, "What's going on? It's fine if you can't see the situation outside, but why can't you see the situation in the municipal building? What do you do for a living?" The person operating the computer was a beautiful blonde, who said with embarrassment, "Sir, I can't find any problems with the computer. As for not being able to see the screen, I think." Cain was furious when he heard this, and asked angrily, "What do you think? Say it quickly." The blonde trembled when she heard this, but she didn't dare to delay and answered, "I think all the cameras here are controlled by someone. Our opponent is a very powerful hacker." Cain was stunned when he heard this. He never expected such a result. To be honest, since the company developed the intelligent Red Queen, they have never suffered any hacker attacks. There is no hacker in this world who is the opponent of Red Queen. In fact, judging from the strength shown by Red Queen in the movie, she has vaguely surpassed Tony's intelligent life Jarvis. In fact, it cannot be said that Red Queen is really more advanced than Jarvis, but they have different focuses. Jarvis is said to be an intelligent life, but it is more appropriate to say that he is Tony's assistant. After all, Jarvis's function is more to assist Tony in research and development. As for hacking into other people's computers and assisting Tony in fighting, they are just two functions. Red Queen is different. Red Queen's functions are more comprehensive, especially biochemical research and auxiliary combat capabilities far exceed Jarvis. This can be seen from the sixth movie, when Isaac used Red Queen to fight Alice and suppressed Alice one-sidedly. Cain's mood at this moment was completely screwed, and he thought it was very funny. Unexpectedly, all the arrangements were destroyed by a hacker. Until then, he had not thought that Red Queen would be conquered by Jiujiu's system and become Jiujiu's most important assistant. From this, it can be seen that Cain is really not a person who can fight. $123 Cain and #039's foolish order destroyed the last of his forces. Once they are out of surveillance, they don't know how to fight. Of course, this is also a common problem for many politicians and businessmen like Cain. Let them manage a company, or even engage in small-scale battles, no problem. But once they engage in real battles, they are no longer good, and they rely mainly on the power of technology. After a moment of daze, Cain also issued an extremely confused order, which is: let the security personnel on other floors go downstairs to support the security personnel on the first floor. Google search TWKAN. In fact, if Cain had a little brain, he would let the security personnel on other floors abandon the first floor and retreat to the top floor. First, the top floor is affected by environmental factors, which is not conducive to the mechanical dog launching sneak attacks and surprise attacks. Second, with more manpower and a tighter defense, it would be easy and enjoyable to fight Jiujiu with only a dozen people. Unfortunately, Cain thought Jiujiu was too simple, and he also thought the battle of the mechanical dog was too simple. As mentioned above, mechanical dogs are more suitable for sneak attacks and assaults rather than frontal combat. In the closed environment on the first floor, mechanical dogs can play a better role in sneak attacks. After the actions of the security personnel were clearly seen by Red Queen through the mechanical fly, Red Queen immediately notified Jiujiu. And immediately gave a suitable ambush plan. Of course, the main force is still the 5 mechanical dogs. After receiving the notice from Red Queen, seeing that the 30 or so umbrella security personnel ambushing in the hall had been cleared, Jiujiu immediately said to Alice and others behind him: the security personnel ambushing above are coming down, you quickly find a place to ambush. Well, just assist me, I will kill them. Hearing Jiujiu's words, Alice and others were obviously stunned for a moment, but they quickly agreed and found objects such as pillars, reception desks, sofas, etc. in the hall to hide. Jiujiu also hid behind a pillar nearby, and took out 2 traps from the space and held them in his left and right hands. Jiujiu's plan is very simple. He will wait for you to rush downstairs, set 2 traps for them, and then let the mechanical dogs launch a surprise attack. The hundreds of panicked security guards will no longer be a threat. After everyone was ready, dense footsteps sounded in the stairwell. The next moment, 4 or 5 fully armed umbrella personnel came out of the stairwell with rifles. Jiujiu did not launch an attack immediately. He waited for most of the enemies to come out before throwing out the traps to cause the greatest damage. After waiting for a while, more security guards came out of the stairwell. The captain of the team gave a puzzled order to his men to check the situation. Diamond suit, diamond suit, diamond suit, diamond suit. Jiujiu suddenly flashed out from behind the pillar, shook his hands and threw the traps in his left and right hands out, and his body quickly hid behind the pillar again. At a distance of only 40 meters, Jiujiu threw it into the crowd effortlessly and accurately. Then, the 2 traps fell to the ground with a clang, and then they were ejected into the air with a buzz, followed by a continuous sound of swoosh. The security personnel who had discovered the sudden appearance of Jiujiu were rushing to the hiding place of Jiujiu, shouting at him to come out and surrender, and were killed by the arrows and steel balls shot by the trap without any preparation. Then more security personnel were shot and killed by arrows and steel balls. Those who reacted quickly and lay down on the ground still could not avoid being shot by arrows and steel balls. Seeing this scene, Alice and others, except Alice and Jill who had known that Jiujiu had this weapon for a long time, all opened their mouths in shock. In fact, no one had ever seen such a powerful weapon, and the magical thing was that the coverage of this weapon was 960 degrees in all directions. In this wave, no less than 50 security personnel died, which immediately frightened the remaining security personnel who were lucky enough to survive. Just as they were celebrating their escape, 5 mechanical dogs attacked from 3 directions. As usual, they rushed into the crowd while opening their mouths to spray energy bullets. The sudden appearance of the mechanical dogs startled the remaining security personnel, and those who reacted quickly immediately picked up their guns and started shooting. The rest turned pale in shock. They had never seen such a fast creature before. They subconsciously felt that they could not kill such a powerful monster. They even had the idea of running away. Unfortunately, the mechanical dogs did not have the function of being soft-hearted. Once they jumped into the crowd, they started killing. Even if many bullets hit their metal bodies, they did not care. Screams rang out one after another. In just one short contact, no less than 20 people died from the mechanical dog's energy bullets, steel teeth, claws and tail stings. Similarly, the remaining security personnel were also stunned, and they would not pay attention to Jiujiu hiding behind the pillar. Jiujiu would not miss this opportunity, and immediately emerged from behind the pillar, holding up the mechanical crossbow and shooting. Seeing this, Alice and others naturally would not miss such an opportunity to pick up an advantage, and they also emerged from behind the cover and started shooting. Cain on the top floor heard the screams and gunshots coming from downstairs, and his face turned as black as the bottom of a pot. He knew that many of the security personnel who went downstairs died, and the one who came here was definitely the mysterious helmeted man. Guessing that it was Jiujiu who came, he regretted not telling the security personnel transferred from the neighboring city about Jiujiu's strength. Otherwise, with careful preparation, there would not necessarily be such a heavy loss. In fact, it is not Cain's fault that he did not tell them about Jiujiu's information. Everyone has selfish motives. All the mechanical creatures owned by Jiujiu have a fatal temptation to any senior executive of the Umbrella. He did not tell these security personnel, but he thought too simply. In his opinion, in the municipal building, ambush the lower layers of personnel, as long as Jiujiu comes in. Even if Jiujiu has mechanical creatures to protect him, it only takes one bullet to solve the problem. How could he have thought that Jiujiu had Red Queen to control all the surveillance probes, and even mechanical flies that could detect and see his arrangements clearly? Unfortunately, there is no regret medicine in this world. One wrong step leads to another. Cain underestimated the consequences of Jiujiu, that is, more than 100 security personnel who were seconded were killed by Jiujiu and others. Only a dozen people were able to escape back to the top floor alive. Seeing the pale and frustrated security guards who had hurriedly retrieved their belongings, Cain could only curse them as idiots and let it go. After all, Jiujiu was about to come up, and he needed these people to help him hold the place. Although he was still a little afraid of Jiujiu's strength, he still had a trump card to save his life. 124 Anti-Sneak Attack. Dr. Ashford was naturally not controlled by him. After all, almost all of these people were invited by Ashford. With him in hand, I believe those people will eventually be afraid. The other one is the sniper hiding on the top floor of the building opposite. He still doesn't believe that those mechanical creatures are invulnerable, but those people, including Jiujiu, can still block bullets. Finally, of course, there was the detonator in his hand. If he had to use it as a last resort, we would both perish in the worst case. Anyway, he buried all the company's security forces in Raccoon City and Lin City here. He will be punished when he returns to the company, and he will have to shed his skin even if he doesn't die. Cain couldn't help but shudder when he thought about the company's punishment methods. The battle downstairs ended quickly with the cooperation of the mechanical dog, Jiujiu, and others. Jiujiu cleans the battlefield in front of everyone. The traps were recovered, and even the weapons and equipment on the corpses were collected into the space. For Jiujiu, if he wants to storm the army, he must have sufficient supplies. The metal and parts on those guns are also materials for making mechanical creatures, so they can't be wasted. Of course, Jiujiu would not leave Alice and others without weapons. He selected weapons and gave them to Alice and others, and prepared enough ammunition for everyone. Seeing those weapons and equipment disappearing as soon as Jiujiu stretched out his hand, everyone became numb. After all, it is not surprising that someone who can control so many mechanical creatures is so magical. After everything was sorted out, Jiujiu did not take immediate action. Instead, he asked the Red Queen to control the mechanical fly for further investigation. The results of the Red Queen's investigation made Jiujiu breathe a sigh of relief. There were only a handful of more than 20 people on the top floor of the municipal building, and Jiujiu wasn't worried at all. The only thing that worried Jiujiu was the 2 snipers on the top floor of the building opposite. But 2 snipers were really nothing to Jiujiu. So, after Jiujiu summoned Alice and several other leaders, he said to them, There are not many enemies on the top floor, only about 20 people, but there are 2 snipers on the rooftop opposite. My plan is for you to wait for me for a while, and then rush up after I take care of the 2 snipers. What do you think of dealing with the remaining personnel? Hearing this, what else could Alice and others say? They had seen Jiujiu's strength before. Whether it was the magical disc-like weapons, those incredibly powerful mechanical creatures, or Jiujiu's own terrifying strength, everyone was left speechless. Strictly speaking, among the people present, not to mention Gil and Carlos, they are elite players from the elite team. Those who can become team members are themselves extremely powerful members of the Special Tactics Rescue Team, just think about it. It can be used as an exclusive force to deal with the most vicious kidnappers, robbers, and even those who create terrorist attacks in the United States. Its strength is different from that of ordinary police forces. Not to mention Alice, the strength that Alice showed in school after being transformed by the virus was also admired by Carlos and others. In their eyes, Alice was already an inhuman existence, but just now, when they saw with their own eyes how Jiujiu killed the enemy, their understanding of strength had been refreshed. Since Jiujiu proposed that he take care of the snipers himself, how could they have any objections, and how could they dare to have any objections? Seeing that no one had any objections, Jiujiu left the 5 mechanical dogs with everyone, and after telling everyone to follow the mechanical dogs, Jiujiu rushed out of the municipal building. After rushing out of the municipal building, Jiujiu, under the guidance of the Red Queen, quickly found the building where the 2 snipers were. Without hesitation, Jiujiu quickly rushed to the top of the building. It only took a few minutes for Jiujiu to rush up to a building with more than 20 floors. It can be seen from this that after the physical attributes exceed 10, Jiujiu's physical fitness, whether it is strength or physical strength, is greatly improved. To deal with the 2 snipers, Jiujiu didn't even bother to use any powerful means. He quietly touched them from behind and easily dispatched them with a crossbow arrow. Later, Jiujiu asked the Red Queen to control the mechanical dog and start taking action. Alice and others who were waiting on the first floor of the municipal building thought that Jiujiu would have to wait 10 minutes to deal with the sniper. But who would have thought that only a few minutes had passed before the 5 mechanical creatures began to take action? Everyone couldn't help but tremble in their hearts, and then hurriedly followed the mechanical dog and reached the top of the building. What Jiujiu didn't know was that on the top floor of another building, King Ada and his 4 men were observing all Jiujiu's actions with telescopes. Following this journey, it can be said that Jiujiu's strength shocked King Ada quite a lot. In fact, he overestimated Jiujiu's strength when he saw Jiujiu kill 3 pursuers. But he didn't expect that just now, Jiujiu shocked him again. More than 130 security personnel. This is such a powerful force, but Jiujiu and his group, with only a dozen people, managed to resolve the battle within 10 minutes with 0 casualties. Such combat capability made Ada Wong more determined to cooperate with Jiujiu to retaliate against the umbrella. When the 5 mechanical dogs rushed to the top floor with Alice and others, Jiujiu also started to act at this time. Compared with Alice in the play who had to use ropes to slide down, Jiujiu's methods were more magical and rough. Under Ada Wong's surprised gaze, Jiujiu jumped out of the top floor of the main building, just when Jiujiu was landing at high speed. Jiujiu turned around and raised his hand to shoot a white silk thread at the wall of the building. After Jiujiu continued to descend for more than 10 meters, his body suddenly paused, and then another silk thread was shot from his other hand, and then Jiujiu's body continued to descend. After several times, Jiujiu had landed more than 10 meters above Cain and others. At the same time, 5 mechanical dogs and Alice and others also rushed to the top floor. Cain, who had been on high alert for a long time, saw someone rushing to the top floor and immediately ordered his men to open fire. Amid the sound of the gunshots, Cain, who was originally full of confidence, was inexplicably frightened. But Jiujiu took advantage of this moment to shoot another spider silk, which landed on the top of Cain and others' heads, and then turned around. Jiujiu, who was in midair, raised the mechanical crossbow in his hand and fired a series of shots. The gunshots covered the originally small firing sound of the mechanical crossbow, and Cain saw his men fall to the ground and die one after another for no apparent reason. $125 Cain and #039's counterattack. When he understood, he looked up and saw a black figure falling from the sky to the ground. Then, Jiujiu rolled on the ground to get rid of the inertia, and his body bounced off the ground. 2 more shining dog-leg knives appeared in his hands, and the knife light flashed quickly, and several of the men who had not yet reacted died. I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network. This is not over yet. 5 mechanical dogs also rushed into the crowd and started the massacre without mercy. Seeing that he had no power to fight back, Cain panicked at this time. While Jiujiu and the 5 mechanical dogs were unable to deal with him, Cain quickly retreated to the helicopter parked on the top floor. Jiujiu was also negligent and did not get rid of Cain immediately, when he had almost killed Cain's men. But he saw Cain pushing out Dr. Ashford, who was tied to a wheelchair. What bothered Jiujiu the most was that Cain had a pistol in his right hand pointing at Ashford's head, and there was a small black thing in his left hand. When he saw the little thing, Jiujiu couldn't help but take a breath of cold air, and immediately guessed that the little thing was the detonator of the bomb. Sure enough, Cain said to Jiujiu with a proud face. "TSK. I have to say, you really surprised me. In total, you killed more than 200 of my men. Haha. Now, shouldn't you put down your weapons and stop your mechanical creatures?" At this point, Cain proudly raised the detonator in his hand. He looked at the 5 mechanical dogs that had stopped beside Jiujiu after being threatened by him, and continued to say to Jiujiu, "What a perfect creature, so beautiful. By the way, can you tell me your name?" "Oh, please forgive my impoliteness, let me introduce myself first. My name is Cain, the general manager of the Raccoon City Umbrella Company." Hearing this, Jiujiu couldn't help but have a headache. He didn't worry about his own safety. After all, even if he had to, he could instantly return to the Marvel world through the system, but once he left, wouldn't his mission in this world be over? This is an opportunity to travel only once a month. If all the tasks cannot be completed, isn't it a waste? Thinking of this, Jiujiu planned to delay time so that Red Queen could calculate how to snatch the detonator from Cain's hand. So, Jiujiu ordered Red Queen to calculate quickly while answering Cain. "I actually knew you a long time ago, Cain. As for me, I am an agent from an organization called SHIELD. My name is Jiujiu, Chinese, you can call me Yi." Hearing this, Cain was surprised and couldn't help but mutter. "SHIELD? What kind of organization is that? Why haven't I heard of it?" Then he reacted and remembered that it was not the time to worry about this shitty organization. The important thing was to get the manufacturing method of mechanical creatures from Jiujiu. So, Cain shrugged and said easily, "Your name is Yi. Okay, Chinese names are always so difficult to pronounce, so let's just leave it like that. Also, can you take off your mask? Let me see what you look like after killing so many of my men." While talking, Alice and others also gathered around, but saw this situation. This group of people were all helpless and could only put down their weapons and look at Jiujiu.